Hello there everyone, welcome to Cryptic Corpse. I am your storyteller and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep. So before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Evelyn Price. I've been living alone in this hidden corner of the Blue Ridge Mountains since my husband Robert passed 3 years ago. Some folks might call it foolish for a 29-year-old widow to stay out here all by herself, but this land has been in Robert's family for generations, and I ain't about to be the one who gives it up. The valley we call home isn't on any proper maps. You can only get here through a narrow mountain pass that twists like a snake between the cliffs. Most days the fog rolls in so thick you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Robert used to say that's why nobody bothers us. God's own curtain, keeping prying eyes away from our business. And our business? Well, that's moonshine, the best corn liquor in all of Virginia, if I do say so myself. Robert taught me everything he knew, how to cook the mash just right, how to keep the copper coils clean, how to hide from the revenue men. Our still is built into a natural cave system behind our cabin. The caves stay humid year-round, and sounds echo something strange in there. Sometimes I swear I hear whispers when I'm working alone. This October has been unusually cold, the kind of bone-deep chill that makes you think winter's coming early and staying late. The mist hangs heavier than usual, playing tricks on my eyes. More than once I've grabbed my shotgun thinking I saw something moving between the trees, only to find nothing there at all. The forest surrounding our property isn't like other woods. The old Cherokee buried their dead here long before white folks arrived. There are standing stones scattered throughout, tall, weathered things that seem to watch you as you pass. Robert always told me to respect them, to nod my head when I walked by. I still do, even though I feel foolish. Old habits die hard, I suppose. There's an underground river that runs beneath the property, bubbling up in a spring near the back of our cave. The constant rushing sound is both a blessing and a curse. It masks the noise of the still from anyone who might be listening, but it also covers the sound of approaching footsteps. More than once I've been startled by a deer or fox that managed to get close without me hearing. At night, the valley seems different. The walls feel like they're closing in, making me feel small and trapped. Animal sounds echo strangely off the rock faces. A single wolf's howl bounces around until it sounds like a whole pack is surrounding the cabin. Last night, I could have sworn the full moon hanging over the ridge was blood red, casting an eerie light through the mist that turned everything crimson. There used to be other homesteads scattered through the valley, empty now. The Wilsons disappeared about 10 years back. Packed up and left overnight, folks say. The Hendersons' place has been empty since before I married Robert. He never liked to talk about why people leave the valley. Some places ain't meant for settling, he'd say, then change the subject. I've got a bad cough that won't quit, comes from breathing in the fumes from the still day after day. Makes it hard to catch my breath sometimes, especially when I'm trying to haul supplies up from town. Doctor says I ought to find different work, but what else am I supposed to do? This is all I know, all I have. Some nights, when the wind is right, I swear I can hear strange howls coming from the deepest part of the valley, not like any wolf or coyote I've ever heard. Robert used to say it was just the wind playing tricks, but I ain't so sure anymore. Lately those howls have been getting closer, and I can't shake the feeling that something out there is watching me, waiting for something. I should have left when I had the chance. But it's too late now. The story I'm about to tell you, it all started last week when I found my still torn apart like no human hands could ever do. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the cave that morning. The air felt different, colder, and with a strange smell I couldn't place. Not the usual scent of fermenting corn and copper, but something wild and musky. My still, my livelihood, was destroyed. The copper coils that I'd polished just yesterday were twisted and mangled like someone had taken them in their bare hands and wrung them like wet laundry. But that's just it. No human could bend metal like that. It would take tools, machinery. This looked like something had just grabbed and pulled. "What in God's name?" I whispered, my voice bouncing off the damp cave walls. My hands shook as I picked up a piece of the ruined still. 3 years I'd kept this operation running on my own, and never had I seen anything like this. Outside the cave I found tracks in the soft mud near the entrance, big paw prints, bigger than any dog or wolf I'd ever seen around these parts. They led straight to my still, and then something odd happened to them. The paw prints gradually changed, becoming more narrow, more human. By the time they reached the tree line, they looked just like a person's bare footprints. I told myself it was 2 different sets of tracks. A wolf had come by, and then some person had to be. But deep down I knew that wasn't right. They were connected somehow, one becoming the other. That night, I barely slept. I kept my shotgun across my lap as I sat by the window, watching the edge of the forest. The full moon cast long shadows across my yard, and the mist seemed to dance between the trees. Evelyn. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The voice was faint, just a whisper on the wind, but I knew that voice better than my own. "Robert," I called back, even though I knew it couldn't be. My husband was 3 years dead and buried on the hill behind our cabin. "Get out, Evelyn. Run." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I must have dozed off eventually because I woke with a start just before dawn. Something felt wrong about the light. It was too bright for so early, and when I checked my watch, I realized with a shock that it was nearly noon. How had I slept so long? It felt like only minutes had passed. That day dragged on forever. I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling eyes on me that I couldn't see. I tried to fix what I could of the still, but my heart wasn't in it. As the sun finally began to set, I noticed something on the ridge above my property, a pack of wolves standing perfectly still watching my cabin. I counted 7 of them, their eyes reflecting the dying light. I raised my hand to shoo them away, but they didn't move, didn't even blink, just watched. I grabbed my binoculars for a better look, but when I raised them to my eyes, the ridge was empty. The wolves were gone. That night, my radio started acting strange. Between stations, instead of the usual static, I heard howling, not recordings of wolves, but something else, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. The howls had words in them, somehow. Nothing I could understand, but definitely words. I turned it off quick and decided to head to bed early. Maybe sleep would clear my head. But sleep brought no peace. I dreamed I was running through the forest on all 4s, the ground rushing beneath me, the smell of prey in my nostrils. I woke up with a gasp, my heart pounding. The floor beneath my bare feet was cold and dirty. I looked down in horror to see mud and pine needles stuck to my skin. My nightgown was damp with dew and torn at the hem. Somehow I'd been outside, sleepwalking, something I'd never done before in my life. Morning light revealed the worst surprise yet. As I walked the edge of my property, checking for more strange tracks, I found pieces of my own clothing scattered through the trees. My red flannel shirt hung from a branch, shredded to ribbons. My work boots sat neatly side by side in a small clearing, looking recently worn, but I was wearing my only other pair of boots, and my red flannel was supposed to be in the wash. Later that day, as I was fetching water from the well, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A human figure far off between the trees, running on all 4s like an animal. Too fast to be normal. Too strange to be human. By the time I blinked, it was gone. That night, I dreamed again. Horrible dreams of hunting, of taking down a deer with my bare hands. No, not hands, but claws. I could taste blood in my mouth, feel the hot meat sliding down my throat. I woke up retching, but the taste lingered. When I went to check my rifle that morning, I found it had been recently fired. The barrel was still warm, I was losing my mind. Had to be. There was no other explanation for what was happening. I tried to keep myself busy, to ignore the strange things going on around me, but they just kept piling up. 3 days after finding my still destroyed, I heard a truck coming up the mountain pass. My heart nearly stopped. Revenue agents. They'd been sniffing around the valley for months, trying to catch moonshiners like me. I grabbed my shotgun and slipped into the woods to watch who was coming. Sure enough, 2 men in government suits stepped out of the truck. They had badges and clipboards. I stayed hidden, watching them poke around my property, taking notes. Eventually, they headed toward the cave where my still was hidden. I should have been worried about getting arrested, but something else was gnawing at me. A different kind of fear. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, though they were too far to hear. "Not today. Not now." They didn't come out of the cave. I waited an hour, then 2. By sunset, I worked up the courage to check on them. What I found made me sick to my stomach. The 2 men were torn apart, not shot, not stabbed, but ripped like paper dolls. Their bodies had been arranged in a strange pattern on the cave floor, like some kind of sick artwork. I couldn't look at it for more than a few seconds before running outside to throw up. This wasn't the work of any animal I knew, and it sure wasn't human. I should have gone for help then, should have run straight to town and brought back the sheriff. But something kept me there, stubbornness maybe, or fear of what they'd think if I told them what I'd been seeing. So I did the unthinkable. I dragged those poor men's bodies deep into the cave system where no one would find them, and I tried to forget. The next morning I found Rex, my hunting dog, hanging from a tree at the edge of my property. He'd been skinned, his hide stretched between 2 pines like a warning flag. Rex was all I had left for company out here. He was a good dog, never hurt nobody. I buried him with tears streaming down my face, too scared and angry to think straight. I decided to check on the Millers, my closest neighbors about 2 miles through the woods. Maybe they'd seen something, heard something. Maybe they were having strange experiences too. The Miller cabin was empty when I got there. The door hung open, swinging in the breeze. Inside, I found something that made my legs give out beneath me. The walls were painted with blood, symbols I'd never seen before, curves and slashes that hurt my eyes to look at. There was no sign of the family, but deep claw marks scored the wooden floor. On my way back home, I noticed something strange. Dead birds arranged in perfect spirals on the ground, dozens of them, all facing inward toward the center. I'd passed this way just hours earlier, and they hadn't been there. Someone, or something, had placed them while I was gone. That night, I locked every door and window in my cabin. I pushed my heavy dresser in front of the door and sat with my shotgun, determined not to sleep. But exhaustion got the better of me. I woke up outside again, mud on my feet, my rifle in my hands. The barrel was warm, recently fired. There was blood under my fingernails that I couldn't explain. What was happening to me? Was I doing these things? Was I hurting people without knowing it? Later that day, Sheriff Collins drove up in his patrol car. My heart sank. Had they found those agents' bodies? Did they know what I'd done? "Evelyn," he tipped his hat to me, looking serious. "Got some folks gone missing hereabouts. Those government boys never came back from their rounds. Miller family hasn't been seen in town for nearly a week. You seen anything strange lately?" I lied. God help me, I lied right to his face. "Nothing unusual, Sheriff. Been keeping to myself mostly." He looked at me hard, like he knew I wasn't telling the truth. "Mind if I look around a bit?" I couldn't say no without seeming guilty, so I nodded. He walked the property, glancing at the cave entrance but not going inside. Before leaving, he turned to me with a worried look. "Evelyn, why don't you come stay in town for a few days? Something don't feel right up here." I should have gone with him. I know that now. But this land was all I had left of Robert, and I couldn't bear to leave it. "I'll be fine, Sheriff. Got my gun if there's trouble." He nodded, not happy, but accepting my decision. "I'll check back tomorrow then." He never made it back. 3 days later, I found his hat near the river, and nearby, parts of him, just parts. Something had been feeding. That night they finally came for me. I was sitting by the fire when I heard them, howls from every direction, closing in. Through the window I saw eyes reflecting the moonlight, dozens of them, surrounding the cabin. Then I saw one clearly for the first time. It stepped into the clearing, standing on two legs like a man, but shaped all wrong. It was tall, taller than any person I'd ever seen, maybe 8 feet or more, covered in dark fur with a wolf's head, but its eyes, those eyes were thinking eyes, knowing eyes. I fired my shotgun through the window. The blast caught it square in the chest, knocking it backward, but to my horror it stood up again. I watched through the broken glass as the wound closed itself, the creature shaking off the injury like it was nothing more than a bee sting. They were coming for me now, and there was nowhere left to run. I ran to the back door, hoping to make it to the cave system. At least there, I knew all the twists and turns, places to hide, to double back. The creatures would have to come at me one by one in those narrow passages. As I burst outside, the cold air hit my lungs and made me cough. That. Same old cough from years of breathing still fumes. I couldn't run fast, not with my bad lungs, but fear pushed me forward. I made it to the cave entrance and slipped inside, the familiar smell of damp stone and moonshine mash filling my nose. I grabbed my lantern and lit it, casting long shadows on the walls as I moved deeper into the cave. Behind me, I heard them enter, claws clicking on stone, low growls echoing. I quickened my pace, taking the side tunnel that led to a section where the underground river cut through the cave. If I could cross it, maybe I'd be safe. Robert always said strange creatures couldn't cross running water. The passage narrowed until I had to crouch down, squeezing through a tight spot I knew would slow down those big wolf things. When I came out the other side, I almost fell into a pit I'd never seen before. I raised my lantern, and my stomach turned. It was a mass grave, dozens of bodies in various states of decay. Some were just bones, old and yellowed, others were fresher. I recognized pieces of clothing from missing folks, Old Man Jenkins's red cap, Susan Miller's blue dress. These things had been hunting in our valley for years, maybe decades. A voice spoke behind me, too close. Beautiful, isn't it? Our collection. I whirled around, raising my shotgun. What I saw made my finger freeze on the trigger. It was Robert, my husband, looking exactly as he had the day before he died. But his eyes were wrong, yellow, with slits like a wolf's. "You're not him," I whispered. "Part of me is," Not Robert said, smiling to reveal teeth too sharp to be human. "I wore his skin for years, Evelyn. Lived with you, loved you. We needed you isolated, alone, last of your bloodline." I fired the shotgun, the blast deafening in the enclosed space. The thing wearing Robert's face was thrown backward, but like the one outside, it began to heal almost immediately. "That's no way to treat your husband," it growled, its voice changing, deepening. Robert's face began to stretch, to change. Fur sprouted from his skin. His mouth extended into a snout. I ran, taking a passage I knew led deeper into the mountain. Behind me, the creature howled, a sound joined by others throughout the cave system. They were all around me. As I ran, my lantern light swept across the cave walls, revealing ancient paintings I'd never noticed before. Stick figures of men turning into wolves. Circles of symbols like the ones I'd seen painted in blood at the Miller place. I reached the chamber with my still, what was left of it, and looked around desperately for a weapon, something better than my shotgun. My eyes fell on the jugs of moonshine stacked against the wall. An idea came to me. Moonshine wasn't just drinking alcohol. It was nearly pure ethanol. It would burn. I grabbed a jug and unscrewed the cap, the sharp smell hitting my nose. I tore a strip from my shirt and stuffed it into the jug, creating a makeshift wick. Now I just needed the creatures to come to me. I didn't have to wait long. They entered the chamber from all sides. 7 of them, massive wolf men, with hungry eyes and slavering jaws. They moved with a purpose, spreading out to surround me. They were hunting as a pack. "What do you want from me?" I asked, trying to buy time as I slowly reached for my matches. The largest one stepped forward. This one didn't look like Robert anymore. It was fully transformed, a monster out of nightmares. "Freedom," it growled, the word mangled by its inhuman mouth. "We are bound to this valley by ancient magic, Cherokee magic. Your blood, your family's blood, is the key to breaking our chains." "My family, I don't understand." "Your husband knew," another one snarled. "Why do you think he brought you here, married you? He found out what you were, descendant of the shaman who cursed us, but he grew attached, wouldn't sacrifice you, so we killed him, took his form when needed, waited for you to weaken." My mind reeled. Robert had known something, kept secrets from me. Those times he'd warned me about the valley, tell me to respect the old stones. He'd been trying to protect me in his own way. "We've been patient," the leader continued, moving closer. "Watching you, testing you, those dreams you've been having. That's us, calling to your blood. You're becoming like us already." I looked down at my hands and, in the lantern light, saw what I'd been trying not to see for days. My fingernails had grown thicker, curved like claws. "Join us willingly," the creature said, "and the transition will be easier. Fight, and we still get what we want, but you suffer." I struck a match and held it to the wick of my moonshine jug. The cloth caught immediately, burning bright. "I may have their blood," I said, "but I'm nothing like you." I threw the jug. At the leader's feet, it shattered, liquid fire splashing over the creature's legs. It howled in pain as flames spread across its fur. The fire caught the edge of another jug, and then another. Soon the whole chamber was filling with flames and smoke. The creatures scrambled to escape, their howls of pain echoing off the walls. I covered my mouth with my shirt and headed for the back exit, a narrow passage that led to the hillside behind my cabin. My lungs burned as I crawled through the smoke-filled tunnel. The coughing was worse than ever, each hack feeling like it tore something inside me, but I kept going, even as I heard the creatures recovering, following me. I was running out of time. I burst out of the hillside exit, gulping in the night air. The moon was high now, that same blood-red color casting everything in a crimson glow. My legs shook as I tried to run, but my body felt strange, like my bones were trying to shift under my skin. Behind me, I heard them emerging from the cave. The fire wouldn't hold them for long. I needed a plan. I made for the river, the one place that might offer protection. Robert's words echoed in my mind. "Evil things can't cross running water." It wasn't much, but it was all I had. The river was swollen from recent rains, rushing fast over rocks. I waded in, the icy water shocking my system. When I reached the middle, I turned to face my pursuers. They stood at the bank, pacing back and forth. One tested the water with a paw-like hand and pulled back with a hiss. So it was true, they couldn't cross, but I couldn't stay in the freezing water forever. Already my legs were going numb, and my cough was getting worse from the cold. The pack leader stepped forward, the one who had worn Robert's face. "You can't stay there forever, Evelyn. The cold will take you before dawn." "What happens at dawn?" I called over the rush of water. "The moon sets, our power wanes, but we'll wait." As if responding to his words, pain shot through my body. I looked down at my hands and saw the skin stretching, fingers lengthening. It wasn't just my nails anymore, my whole hand was changing. "What's happening to me?" I cried out. "The change has started," the creature said, almost gently. "Fighting it only brings pain. Your dreams, your sleepwalking, that was your body preparing. Your blood remembers what it was meant to be." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "I never asked for this." "Few do. But you have a choice now. Stay in that river and die as a human, or come to us and live as something more." Another wave of pain hit me, driving me to my knees in the water. My reflection showed my face contorting, my teeth sharpening. "Why me?" I gasped. "The shaman who cursed us. He was your ancestor. He bound us to this valley, made us monsters, but kept the power of the change for his bloodline. Insurance, he called it. A way to control us, if needed." The pieces started falling into place. Why Robert had been so protective, why he'd taught me to respect the old stones, why he'd wanted me to leave after he was gone. "Robert knew," I said. "He was protecting me from you. He discovered the truth in his family's papers, old stories about the valley, about us. He thought he could keep you safe by keeping you ignorant. But blood will tell, Evelyn. Yours has been calling to ours for years." The water around me was turning pink. I looked down to see my skin splitting along my arms, blood mixing with the river. The pain was unbearable now. "Make it stop," I begged. "Come to us," the leader said. "Only we can teach you to control it." I thought about my life. The loneliness after Robert died. The struggle to keep the still running. The feeling that something was missing. Had some part of me always known I was different? "If I come with you," I said, "what happens to the valley? To the people down in town?" The creature's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "We've been trapped here for generations. We hunger for new hunting grounds." That's when I knew I couldn't let them leave, even if it meant I had to stay too. I struggled to my feet, fighting against the change trying to take over my body. "Robert died to protect me from you, to protect everyone from you." With a sudden clarity, I remembered something. Robert's grave up on the hill behind our cabin. He'd been buried with his grandfather's silver pocket watch. Silver. Old stories said silver could hurt creatures like these. "I need to think," I called out, pretending to waver. "Give me until dawn." The leader nodded, satisfied that I was considering their offer. "We'll be waiting." I made my way upstream, moving against the current where the water was shallower. The creatures followed along the bank, watching. They thought I was trapped, with nowhere to go but to them. They didn't know about the place where the river narrowed, where a fallen tree created a bridge. It was far, but I could make it if I hurried. Each step was agony as my body fought against itself. I could feel fur sprouting on my arms, my face elongating. But I held on to my human thoughts, my human heart. When I reached the fallen tree, I crossed quickly, hearing the frustrated howls behind me. By the time they ran around to my side of the river, I'd have a head start. I ran through the woods toward the hill where Robert was buried. My vision was sharper now. Even in the darkness, I could smell things I'd never noticed before. The musty scent of rabbits hiding in their burrows, the tang of pine sap, the distant smell of the creatures pursuing me. Robert's grave was marked with a simple wooden cross. I fell to my knees beside it and dug with my hands, no, my claws now. The soil was soft from recent rain, and soon I hit the simple pine box we'd buried him in. I tore at the lid, splintering the wood. Robert's remains lay inside, now just bones in rotting clothes. I searched his pockets with shaking hands, finally finding the silver watch. Behind me, I heard the pack approaching. They'd circled around the river and picked up my scent. I clutched the watch tight, feeling the silver burn against my transforming skin. It hurt, but that pain helped clear my mind, push back the fog of the change. As the first of the creatures burst into the small clearing, I made my decision. I was the last of the bloodline that had cursed them. If I died, they would remain trapped in this valley forever. But if I joined them, they would be free to hunt beyond these mountains. The leader stepped forward, reaching out a clawed hand. "It's time, Evelyn. No more fighting what you are." I looked down at Robert's bones, remembering how he'd loved me, tried to protect me. "I'm sorry," I whispered to him. Then I turned to face the pack. In my palm, I held the silver watch, its chain wrapped around my wrist. "You want me to lead you out of this valley?" I asked, my voice deeper, rougher than before. The leader nodded, eyes gleaming in the moonlight. I felt the last pieces of my humanity slipping away, but I held on to one thing, my choice. I could choose what kind of monster I would become. Then follow me, I said. But I didn't head toward the mountain pass that led out of the valley. Instead, I ran deeper into the mountains, toward the ancient burial grounds where the standing stones watched like silent sentinels. The pack followed, thinking I was one of them now, in a way I was. But Robert had taught me to respect the old ways, the old places. There was power there, power that had created this curse in the first place. As the moon began to set, I reached the center of the stone circle, the silver watch burning a permanent scar into my palm. The pack surrounded me, waiting. "What happens now?" the leader asked. I smiled with my new sharp teeth. "Now we hunt." But the hunting grounds I chose would be this valley, only this valley, forever. My blood had made me what I was, but my heart was still mine to command, and in the howling valley there would always be prey enough for those who knew where to look. My name is Michael Garrison, I'm 41 years old, and I live alone in the deep forests of the Cascade Mountains in Oregon. It wasn't always this way. 3 years ago I was an executive at Pacific Northwest Timber, wearing suits and sitting in board meetings where we planned which parts of this ancient forest to cut down next. That feels like another lifetime now. My cabin sits nestled against a hillside, built with my own hands from fallen trees and recycled materials. I designed it to blend in with the forest. Moss grows on the roof, and from just 50 feet away, you might miss it completely. That's how I like it. I wake up each morning to the sound of rain tapping on my roof. It rains so much here that the ground stays muddy year-round. Sometimes I find animal tracks near my home, but they wash away quickly in the constant drizzle. The trees around me are giants, some over 500 years old. When I look up, I can barely see the sky through their branches. It's like living in a green cathedral. The light that filters down is soft and dappled, never harsh, even at midday. Walking through this forest isn't easy. Plants grow everywhere, ferns as tall as my chest, berry bushes that grab at my clothes, and fallen logs covered in so much moss they look like green sofas. Most times, I can only see a few feet ahead on the narrow paths. There's something special about the springs here too. Hot water bubbles up from deep underground, creating pools of warmth surrounded by mist. On cold mornings, these spots look magical, with steam rising into the cold air. I've found myself drawn to them, especially when my back pain flares up. My back? That's a reminder of my old life. A logging accident left me with 3 damaged discs. The company paid me well to keep quiet about the safety violations, and that money helped me start this new life. The pain reminds me daily of the cost of carelessness in these woods. As I walk through the forest, I sometimes come across old logging equipment, rusted chainsaws, abandoned trucks slowly being reclaimed by nature. Each one makes my stomach tighten with guilt. I helped put those machines here. I signed the papers that sentenced thousands of trees to death. This morning I hiked to a rocky outcrop about a mile from my cabin. The native people who lived here long before me left their mark, carvings in the stone showing people, animals, and strange symbols I don't understand. I've found similar markings on some of the oldest trees too. I always touch them gently, feeling a connection to those who respected this land before the lumber companies came. There's a network of small caves nearby that I've only partially explored. They twist and turn beneath the forest floor, and I can feel cool air flowing from their dark mouths. Something about them makes me uneasy, so I haven't gone too deep. Not yet, anyway. Lately I've had a strange feeling while walking in the woods, like I'm being watched. Even in the quietest moments, when not even birds are singing, I feel eyes on me. I'll spin around, certain someone is standing right behind me, but find nothing but trees and shadows. And the trees, sometimes I swear they move. I know how crazy that sounds. But I'll mark a path one day, and the next day it seems to lead somewhere completely different. At first I blamed my poor navigation skills, but now I'm not so sure. This forest has secrets. I came here seeking peace and forgiveness for what I helped do to these woods. But lately, I'm beginning to think the forest might not be ready to forgive me yet. Something weird happened today. I woke up at sunrise like I always do, made my coffee, and stepped outside to check my solar panels. They weren't how I left them. All 4 panels had been turned slightly, now pointing in a different direction. Not toward the sun for better power, that would make sense. Instead, they formed a pattern, like they were pointing to something in the forest I couldn't see. I spent an hour checking for animal damage, or if the wind had somehow moved them, but the mounting bolts were still tight. Someone, or something, had deliberately adjusted them. Out here, miles from the nearest person, that thought made my skin crawl. I decided to hike to the stream for fresh water, trying to shake off my unease. That's when I saw the footprints. They followed my usual path, but they weren't mine. They were huge, easily twice the size of my boot prints. Whatever made them walked on 2 legs, but no human has feet that big. The rain had made the mud soft, and the prints were deep, like whatever made them was very heavy. I followed them for about 100 yards before they disappeared into a thicket too dense for me to push through. Standing there, staring at where the tracks vanished, I heard it for the first time, the sound of branches breaking, snap, 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 snap. Pause, snap. It wasn't random, it had a rhythm, almost like code. The sounds came from different directions, as if something was moving quickly around me in a circle. But nothing that big should be able to move so fast through this thick forest. I hurried back to my cabin, my heart pounding. The rest of the day passed quietly, but I couldn't relax. As evening came, I noticed something else strange. The sun was setting in the northwest. That's impossible. The sun sets in the west. I've lived in these woods long enough to know the basics. I checked my compass, and the needle spun wildly, pointing nowhere and everywhere. That night, I barely slept. The forest, usually full of night sounds, owls hooting, small animals rustling in the underbrush, was completely silent. The silence pressed against my ears like a physical weight. The next morning I hiked to the small meadow where deer usually graze. It was empty. No deer, no rabbits, not even insects buzzing around the wildflowers. The animals had all gone, leaving an eerie quiet behind. My GPS stopped working too. My phone showed no signal, which wasn't unusual, but now it wouldn't even turn on. One by one, my electronic devices failed. First the fancy ones, then even my simple battery-powered radio. It was like something was systematically cutting me off from the outside world. 3 days later, I woke up before dawn and decided to climb the tallest hill nearby to watch the sunrise. The climb was harder than usual. The paths seemed different, steeper, with roots that hadn't been there before reaching up to trip me. When I reached the top, I stopped dead in my tracks. Above me, tree branches from different trees had been woven together in patterns that couldn't have happened naturally. They formed perfect geometric shapes, triangles inside circles inside squares. Some looked like the symbols from the native carvings I'd seen. The branches were thick and strong. It would take enormous strength to bend them like that. On my way back to the cabin, I got lost. That's never happened before. I've walked these woods for 3 years, know every rock and tree, but suddenly nothing looked familiar. What should have been a 30-minute walk took hours. When I finally spotted my cabin, the sun was already setting, but it felt like I'd only been walking for a short time. Hours had vanished. That night, I dreamed of ancient forests, trees taller than skyscrapers, and shadows moving between them. Shadows with purpose. In the dream, the forest was alive. Not just growing, but thinking, watching, waiting. I woke up covered in sweat, my back pain worse than it had been in months. I got up to splash water on my face. As I leaned over the small basin, I froze. Instead of my reflection, I saw my face looking back at me from the bark of the tree, visible through my window. I blinked hard, and it was gone. But the feeling of being watched remained. A week has passed since the strange reflections, and things are getting worse. Yesterday, I hiked to the eastern ridge where a research team had set up camp last month. They were studying spotted owls, counting nests, tagging birds, the usual conservation work. I'd visited them twice, bringing fresh vegetables from my garden and enjoying actual human conversation. The camp was destroyed. Their tents lay flattened beneath fallen trees that had been healthy and strong just days earlier. I called out, hoping someone was still around, but only silence answered me. That's when I found them. 3 researchers, their bodies crushed beneath massive trunks that seemed to have fallen in exactly the right pattern to trap them. It wasn't random. The trees had fallen in a perfect triangle, pointing to the center where the bodies lay. I should have hiked out immediately, gone for help. But the forest paths shifted again, leading me in circles until I somehow ended up back at my cabin as darkness fell. My radio was still dead. I was completely cut off. This morning brought a new horror. Every 2 weeks, a bush pilot named Dave flies over and drops supplies for me in a small clearing. I heard his plane approach around noon, circling lower than usual. The engine sounded wrong, sputtering, straining, then silence. I ran toward the clearing, but the plane wasn't there. After searching for hours, I found it, or what was left of it. The small aircraft was wrapped around the top of the tallest pine tree, its metal frame twisted like a child's toy. Dave was still strapped in his seat, impaled by a branch that couldn't possibly have been strong enough to pierce the cockpit's windshield. I threw up right there, my stomach emptying itself while my mind tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Planes don't crash upward, trees don't grow through metal and glass in minutes. None of this was possible. On my way back to the cabin, dizzy with fear and confusion, I stumbled into a small clearing I'd never seen before. Human skeletons lay arranged in perfect circles around massive tree stumps. The bones were old, covered in moss and dirt, but deliberately placed. Some still wore tattered clothes with modern zippers and buttons. These weren't ancient remains. I ran, blind with panic, and somehow found my cabin again. Inside, I barricaded the door with furniture and huddled in a corner with my hunting rifle across my knees. I must have fallen asleep because sudden daylight woke me. But it wasn't coming from my windows. I was no longer in my cabin. I was lying on my side next to one of the geothermal springs, morning light filtering through the trees above. Around me, in a perfect spiral pattern, hundreds of dead salmon had been arranged, their eyes all facing inward toward me. The nearest river was miles away. Scrambling to my feet, I noticed something else. My hands were dirty, my fingernails caked with soil and splinters. My clothes were torn and mud-stained. With growing horror, I spotted a crude shelter made of branches and leaves a few feet away. A shelter I had no memory of building. When I finally found my way back to my cabin, it was nearly sundown. I discovered a small cave nearby that I'd somehow never noticed before, despite living here for years. Morbid curiosity pulled me inside, where my flashlight revealed hundreds of human skulls lining the walls. Each skull had a perfect circular hole in the same spot, right at the temple. Not a bullet hole, but something else, like the bone had been melted. That night I woke to scratching sounds on my roof. Looking out the window, I saw nothing but felt the weight of something massive moving above me. Wood creaked and dust fell from the ceiling beams. In the morning I found photos scattered on my kitchen table. Polaroids of me sleeping in my bed, taken from above, from angles that would require the photographer to be hanging from my ceiling or floating in the air. I never brought a Polaroid camera to the cabin. While hiking that afternoon, seeking a high point where my phone might get signal, I came across an ancient burial ground. Stone markers jutted from the earth, covered in symbols like those on the trees and rocks. The soil had been disturbed recently, with deep grooves like something had been digging. With shock, I realized the burial ground was directly beneath where my cabin stood. I had built my home on top of a sacred site. Had the forest been trying to tell me this all along? As I stood there, The first snow of the season began to fall, even though it was only September and the day had been warm until now. The temperature dropped rapidly, my breath fogging in front of me. Among the swirling snowflakes, I caught a glimpse of something moving between the trees, something huge, walking upright, but not human. It was time to face whatever was hunting me. I grabbed my chainsaw from the tool shed and headed into the forest. If something was out there, I wasn't going to hide anymore. My back ached with each step, a sharp reminder of my past sins against these woods. The snow stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving behind a strange quiet. The air felt thick, hard to breathe, like right before a thunderstorm. I pushed deeper into the trees, following a path that seemed to appear just for me, branches moving aside as I approached. That's when I first saw it clearly. Standing between two ancient trees was a figure so tall it made me dizzy to look up at it. 12 feet at least, maybe more. At first, I thought it was just another tree. Its skin was the same color as bark, covered in patches of moss and tiny mushrooms. But then it moved. It was shaped like a man, but definitely not human. Massive shoulders, arms longer than my entire body, and a face that seemed to shift and change when I tried to focus on it. Sometimes it looked almost human, with deep-set eyes that glowed amber in the shadows. Other times, it looked like a jumble of wood and leaves with no real face at all. I raised my chainsaw, my hands shaking so hard I could barely pull the starter cord. The familiar roar of the engine gave me courage. This was a tool I knew well, the same tool I'd used to destroy countless trees in my past life. "What do you want?" I shouted over the chainsaw's noise. The creature didn't speak. Instead, I felt words forming directly in my mind, like someone whispering inside my skull. "You know what I want, Destroyer." The voice brought images flooding into my brain. Memories of forests being cleared, trees crashing down, wildlife fleeing in terror. But they weren't just any forests, they were specific cuts I had ordered, specific destruction I had caused. The creature was showing me my own past. I lunged forward with the chainsaw, more from fear than bravery. The blade hit the creature's arm, cutting deep, but instead of blood, golden sap oozed from the wound. The creature didn't flinch or cry out. It simply looked at the injury with what seemed like curiosity. Before my eyes, the wound closed itself. The bark-like skin grew back together, leaving no mark at all. "Your tools cannot harm me. I am older than your tools, older than your kind." Panic took over. I swung the chainsaw wildly, cutting into the creature's chest, its legs, even managing a glancing blow to its head. Each wound sealed itself instantly. Worse, with each cut, I felt a sharp pain in my own body, as if I were attacking myself. The creature finally moved, faster than anything that size should move. It knocked the chainsaw from my hands with one swipe, sending it flying into the underbrush. Then it placed one massive hand on my chest, pinning me against a tree without effort. "You must see, you must understand." Suddenly, I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was floating high above it, watching as decades passed in minutes. I saw the forest as it was hundreds of years ago, pristine, untouched by humans. Then logging camps appeared, roads cut through the wilderness, and machines began to tear into the green canopy. I watched myself in meetings pointing at maps, signing papers that sentenced entire sections of forest to death. I felt the trees' pain as they fell, felt the soil erode, the animals flee or die. The creature was making me experience the destruction from the forest's perspective. Then the vision changed. I saw the future. My cabin, rotting away, and new people coming, men with measuring tools and construction equipment, new roads, new houses, an entire development spreading across the hillsides. The ancient trees cut down to make room for vacation homes that would sit empty most of the year. The vision ended abruptly, and I was back in the forest, gasping for breath. The creature's hand was still on my chest, but no longer pushing hard enough to hurt. "This is what will come if you fail." "Fail at what?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. Instead of answering, the creature led me deeper into the forest to a cave I'd never found before. Inside, the walls glowed with a faint blue light. The cave opened into a massive underground chamber where a single enormous tree grew, its roots spreading throughout the cave floor, its top reaching up through a hole in the ceiling to the forest above. The tree was dying. Half its branches were bare, and its bark was falling away in large chunks. Around its base, small bones were arranged in patterns, mice, birds, fish, like offerings. I am bound to this place, bound to the guardian tree. As it dies, so do I. The forest needs a new protector. Why me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. You understand both worlds, human and forest, destroyer and creator. Your guilt makes you strong, your pain makes you wise. The creature touched my forehead with one long finger, and I fell to my knees as images flooded my mind again. But these weren't my memories. They were the creature's, centuries of watching over the forest, driving away those who would harm it, protecting the balance, communicating with the trees and animals, becoming one with the forest itself. I saw other humans who had been chosen before me, some who accepted, some who refused. Those who accepted became part of something ancient and powerful. Those who refused, their bones now lined the cave walls I had found earlier. When the vision ended, I was lying on the cave floor, the creature kneeling beside me. My back pain was gone completely for the first time in years. The choice is yours, but know this, the forest remembers. It has been patient with you because it sensed your change of heart. That patience is ending. The creature stood and walked toward the dying tree, placing both hands on its trunk. They seemed to melt together, the creature's body becoming part of the wood. Decide soon, Michael Garrison. The next time we meet will be the last. Then it was gone, merged completely with the tree. I was alone in the glowing cave, faced with an impossible choice. I stumbled back to my cabin as the sun set, my mind racing with everything I'd seen. The creature's vision still burned in my thoughts. The past destruction I'd caused, the future danger the forest faced, and the choice I had to make. Sleep didn't come that night. I sat on my porch, watching the trees sway in the gentle breeze. Were they always swaying in such perfect harmony, like they were dancing together? How had I never noticed before? Around midnight, a storm rolled in. Lightning flashed, illuminating the forest in brief, brilliant bursts. In those flashes, I could see dark shapes moving between the trees, tall figures watching my cabin. The guardian wasn't alone. The forest had many protectors. By morning, I had made my decision. I packed a small bag with food and water, locked my cabin door, and headed toward the guardian tree's cave. The path opened easily before me this time, the forest welcoming me rather than confusing me. Birds sang overhead, and twice I spotted deer watching me from behind trees, their eyes seeming more knowing than animals' eyes should be. At the cave entrance, I hesitated. If I went through with this, would I still be me? Would I remember my life, my family, my past, or would I become something else entirely? A soft glow emanated from deep within the cave, pulling me forward. The guardian tree looked worse than before, more bark fallen away, more branches bare. The creature was there too, sitting at the base of the tree, its body now partially transparent, like it was fading away. You have decided. It wasn't a question. I have questions first, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Those people I found dead, without the researchers, the pilot, did you kill them? The creature tilted its head, considering me. The forest defends itself. Those who mean harm find harm. They weren't hurting anything, I argued. They were studying owls, delivering supplies. You see with human eyes, still. The researchers placed tracking devices on forest creatures. The flying man dropped metal boxes that leaked poison into the soil. Small harms lead to greater ones. I wanted to argue more, but remembered what I'd seen in the visions. How one road led to more roads, how one small cut in the forest became a gaping wound over time. If I agree to become the new guardian, will I have to hurt people? You will protect balance. Sometimes a single tree must fall to save the forest. Sometimes a single threat must end to preserve all else. Not exactly a comforting answer, but I thought about the development company that would come if I failed. How they would flatten this ancient place for vacation homes and souvenir shops. What happens to me? Do I die? The creature made a sound like branches rubbing together in wind. A laugh, perhaps. Death is a human fear. You will change. Your old self will end. A new self will begin. Parts remain. Parts transform. It stood up, towering over me, and placed its hand on the dying tree. This guardian has watched for 500 winters. It grew from a human who chose as you now choose. That revelation hit me hard. The tree itself was once human? Would I become a tree, rooted in place for centuries? As if reading my thoughts, the creature shook its head. Each guardian is different. The forest needs what it needs. You will become what you must become. It stepped back, gesturing for me to approach the tree. Place your hands on the guardian. If your choice is true, the change will begin. My heart pounded as I stepped forward. Everything in me screamed that this was madness. I should run, hike out of these woods, call the authorities about the dead researchers, return to the normal world. But another part of me, a deeper part, knew I belonged here now. I had helped destroy forests before. Now I could spend eternity protecting one. I placed my hands on the rough bark of the guardian tree. At first, nothing happened. Then warmth spread from the tree into my palms, up my arms, throughout my body. My back, which had ached for years, suddenly felt strong and straight. My vision sharpened. I could see individual dust motes dancing in the cave air, count the tiny veins in leaves across the cave. Memories flooded through me, but not my memories. The forest's memories. Trees growing from seedlings to giants, animals being born, living, dying in natural cycles. Rain falling, snow melting, seasons turning for centuries. I saw humans too, native peoples who lived in harmony with the forest, taking only what they needed, giving thanks for what they took. Then later, humans with axes and saws, taking and taking without giving back. As these memories filled me, I felt myself changing. My skin roughened, darkened. My feet sent tiny roots into the soil beneath me. I grew taller, stronger. The creature, the old guardian, watched with glowing eyes as its body became more transparent. The forest accepts you. Learn its ways. Protect its balance. Remember your human heart when judgment is needed. The guardian's form shimmered and faded completely, merging with the air itself. The dying tree seemed to sigh, its remaining leaves falling all at once. But as they fell, new green buds appeared on the branches. I felt the change complete itself. I wasn't human anymore, but I wasn't a tree either. I was something in between, a watcher, a guardian, a protector bound to the forest but able to move within it. My first test came sooner than I expected. A week later, 3 hikers entered the forest. I sensed them miles away, felt their footsteps on the earth. I moved silently between trees to observe them, my bark-like skin making me nearly invisible against the trunks. They were young, carrying backpacks and cameras. I watched as they set up camp, built a small fire, and talked excitedly about the untouched wilderness they had found. One of them pulled out a map and spread it on a rock. "This whole area is perfect," he said. "My dad's company can build the access road here, put the main lodge on this ridge." I stepped from behind the trees then, revealing myself. They screamed, Scrambling backward, I towered over them, silent and still. What is that thing?" one whispered, raising his camera with shaking hands. I didn't speak aloud. Instead, I sent images into their minds, the forest teeming with life, the delicate balance of all things, the destruction their development would bring. The one with the map passed out. The others grabbed him and ran, leaving their camping gear behind. They would tell stories of a monster in the woods, a Bigfoot or a madman. Few would believe them. Those who did would stay away. That was enough for now. The forest had shown me visions of development to test my commitment, but the real threat hadn't arrived yet. When it did, I would be ready. Seasons passed. My old cabin slowly fell apart as rain and wind and time did their work. I no longer needed shelter. The forest itself was my home now. Sometimes I think about my human life, the people I knew, the places I went. Those memories grow dimmer with each passing year, like photographs fading in sunlight. But I remember why I'm here. I remember what I protect and why it matters. If you hike deep enough into the Cascade Mountains of Oregon, you might find an overgrown path leading to a hillside where a cabin once stood. You might feel eyes watching you from between the trees. You might hear branches snapping in patterns that sound almost like words. If you do, listen carefully to what the forest is telling you. And remember, some places are not meant for taking. Some places are meant to remain wild, ancient, and free. I am Michael Garrison. I was a destroyer of forests. Now I am their guardian, and I will be watching from the trees. My name is James Yazzie. I've been out here in the Sonoran Desert for 17 days now, though sometimes it feels like I've always been here. The mesa rises like a giant's hand from the desert floor, and I've made my home in a natural rock shelter near the top. No one comes up here. The climb is too dangerous for tourists, and most of the Navajo elders avoid this place. They say it's sacred or cursed. Sometimes those words mean the same thing. I came here to heal. Vietnam left holes in me that no doctor could fix. Some you can see, like the shrapnel still buried in my right leg, and some you can't. The nightmares, the faces, the things I did over there that I can't talk about with anyone who wasn't there. My grandmother used to tell me that the desert has power, that it strips away everything false until only your true self remains, half Navajo, half white. I've never fully belonged anywhere. The tribe sees me as an outsider, and white folks see me as just another Indian. But out here, none of that matters. It's just me and the desert. My shelter isn't much. A sleeping bag, some supplies, a small radio that mostly picks up static, and my old service dog, Rusty. He saved my life in Nam more times than I can count. Now he just helps me remember I'm human when the nights get too long. The heat during the day is like being inside an oven. It bakes into your bones until you can't remember what cool feels like. Then night comes, and the cold is so fierce it makes your teeth chatter. The temperature swing would kill most people, but I've learned to ride it like a wave. The wind never stops. It carries sounds from miles away, coyote howls, rock slides, and sometimes voices that can't possibly be real. When the sun is setting and the shadows stretch long across the rocks, I swear I can hear people calling my name. Yesterday, a flash flood tore through the canyon below. When the water receded, I climbed down to see what it had uncovered. There were bones, old ones, with strange markings carved into them. I left them where they lay. Some things shouldn't be disturbed. There's an abandoned uranium mine about 2 miles from here. The warning signs are so weathered you can barely read them anymore. The locals say the land is poisoned. Maybe they're right. Sometimes I feel like I'm being watched, especially when I pass the saguaro cacti that stand like silent guardians. They're arranged in patterns that don't seem natural, perfect circles and lines that point to the rising sun. At night, when the desert goes completely silent, my ears ring with the emptiness. Then, just as I'm about to fall asleep, I hear rocks shifting somewhere in the darkness. Small movements, patient, like something's waiting. I came here looking for visions, for answers. The traditional way would be to fast and pray, to suffer until the spirits take pity and show me a path forward. But after what I've seen in the war, I'm not sure any spirit would want to talk to me. Still, I try. Every morning I face the east and offer tobacco. Every evening I sing the songs my grandmother taught me. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. The shame of not knowing my own culture burns worse than the desert sun. Today I noticed something strange about the petroglyphs on the rock wall near my shelter. I've been studying them since I arrived. Ancient drawings of people, animals, and symbols I don't understand. But this morning, I could swear they were in different positions, like the hunters and the prey had moved overnight. It's probably just the light playing tricks. Or maybe I've been alone too long. Either way, I'm not leaving until I find what I came for. Tomorrow I'll climb higher up the mesa. There's a place my grandmother once mentioned. A hidden cave where medicine men used to commune with the spirits. Maybe there, I'll finally find some peace. Or maybe the desert will just take what's left of me. I woke up this morning with sand in my mouth and a feeling that something wasn't right. My water jug was cracked, perfect little lines forming a pattern like a spider web. I hadn't dropped it, hadn't left it in the sun. But there it was, the precious water soaking into the thirsty ground. Rusty was acting strange too. He kept staring at the same spot outside our shelter, hackles raised, but wouldn't go near it. When I checked, I found footprints. Coyote tracks that seemed to walk right up to our camp, but then, this is the part that made my skin crawl. They changed. The last few prints looked human, with 5 toes and everything. Just the wind reshaping them, I told myself, but Rusty didn't buy it, and deep down neither did I. The radio started working last night. Just for a few minutes, I was half asleep when I heard my grandmother's voice singing an old healing song. The same one she used to sing when I had nightmares as a kid. I sat up so fast I banged my head on the rock ceiling. "Grandma," I called out, forgetting for a moment that she'd been dead for 5 years. The singing stopped. The radio went back to static. But I swear I heard laughter fading away. Not my grandmother's warm chuckle, but something cold that made Rusty whimper and press against my side. Today seemed longer than it should be. I've been keeping track of time with a small notebook, marking the sunrise and sunset. But my watch said it was 4 p.m. when the sun was still high overhead, like it was stuck at noon. By the time it finally set, my watch read midnight. On my way back from checking my snares, empty again, the desert seems to be hiding its animals from me, I saw a group of rabbits just sitting in a circle, not moving, not eating, just watching me pass. Their eyes followed me like they knew who I was, like they were waiting for something. The radio plays more often now. Sometimes it's music from back home. Sometimes it's just voices talking in languages I don't understand. But last night, I heard myself. My own voice, telling a story about a battle in Vietnam that I've never told anyone. Details I've tried to forget. How did the radio know? This morning I found a shirt half buried in the sand about 50 yards from camp. It was my size, my style, but I'd never seen it before. When I picked it up, it smelled like someone else had been wearing it, someone who used the same pine soap my father used to use. The strangest thing happened at sunset. I was sitting on the edge of the mesa, watching the sky turn red, when I noticed a structure about 100 yards from my camp. A small hogan, a traditional Navajo home, made of wood and earth. It wasn't there yesterday. I know it wasn't. I approached it carefully, Rusty growling low beside me. Inside I found a small fire pit, some dried herbs hanging from the ceiling and a bed of soft grasses. It looked lived in. And on the dirt floor were my boot prints. "Did I build this?" I whispered to Rusty. "Have I been sleepwalking?" That night, I dreamed of a ceremony I've never seen. People dancing around a fire, wearing animal skins. In the dream, they called my name and offered me a bundle wrapped in deerskin. When I unwrapped it, I found a knife made of obsidian and bone. They wanted me to use it to cut something or someone. I woke up sweating despite the cold. This morning I found that same knife tucked into my belt. I went to the small pool of standing water that collects in a rock basin near my shelter. I needed to wash my face to clear my head, but when I leaned over the water, the face that looked back wasn't mine, at least not entirely. It shifted between my features and others. An old man with deep wrinkles, a young woman with fierce eyes, a child with a missing tooth. I stumbled back, heart pounding. When I found the courage to look again, it was just me, tired, scared, stubborn me. "You're losing it, Yazzie," I told myself. "Desert madness, that's all this is." But I don't believe that anymore. Something is out here with me, something that knows my name, my past, my fears, something that can wear different faces, and I think it's getting closer. A park ranger came to check on me yesterday. I didn't even know anyone knew I was up here. He said someone in town had mentioned a crazy Vietnam vet camping on the sacred mesa, and he wanted to make sure I was okay. His name was Miller. Seemed like a good guy, offered me extra water, some beef jerky. We talked for a while about the desert, the weather, normal stuff. It felt good to speak to another human. He said he'd come back in a few days. This morning I found him, or what was left of him. His body was laid out on a flat rock about a quarter-mile from my camp. His skin was gone. All of it, like someone had peeled it off in one piece. His eyes were still open, staring at the sky. I threw up until there was nothing left in my stomach. I should have gone for help. Should have hiked out to the ranger station, but something told me it was already too late for Miller, and if I left, I might be next. Rusty started acting strange after that, following things I couldn't see, growling at shadows. Last night, he disappeared. I called for hours, my voice echoing across the empty desert. I found him this morning near the uranium mine. He was wrong. Turned inside out somehow, but still breathing. His organs pulsing in the morning sun, his eyes still in their sockets, looking at me with such pain, such betrayal. I did what I had to do, used my knife to end his suffering, buried him under a cairn of stones. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The flash flood came again last night, bigger than before. When the waters receded, they'd carved a new channel through the desert floor, revealing something that made my blood freeze. Bodies, dozens of them, old skeletons arranged in a circle, all facing inward. Each one had the same strange markings carved into the bones as the ones I'd seen before, and at the center of the circle was a fresh patch of disturbed earth. I couldn't help myself. I dug. 6 inches down, I found dog tags, military issue, Vietnam era. They had my name on them. But that's impossible. My tags are in my backpack. I checked. They're still there. These were identical. Every scratch, every dent. When I got back to camp, I noticed vultures circling. At least 20 of them, arranged in a perfect wheel pattern in the sky, all facing my shelter. They didn't make a sound, just watched, with their patient, hungry eyes. The blackouts are getting worse. I lose hours now, sometimes a whole day. I wake up with dirt under my fingernails, blood on my clothes. There's evidence I've been hunting, small animal bones arranged in patterns around my fire pit, crude spears I don't remember making. Yesterday, during a moment of clarity, I hiked to a part of the mesa I hadn't explored before. I found a cave hidden behind a stand of scrub brush. Something told me not to go inside. Every instinct screamed danger. I went in anyway. The smell hit me first. Death, old and new. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw them, bodies hanging from the ceiling like meat in a butcher shop. Some fresh, some mummified by the dry desert air, all skinned, and the skins themselves were stretched on frames along the walls, preserved, like costumes waiting to be worn. I ran, fell down the path back to my camp, scraped my hands raw on the rocks. Didn't stop until I reached my shelter. That night, I dreamed of Billy Two Feathers, my squad mate from Nam. We'd been close, saved each other's lives, more times than I could count. He died in my arms during a firefight near Khe Sanh. In the dream, he sat across from me at my fire, smiled his crooked smile. "You left me there, Jimmy," he said. "You promised no man gets left behind." "You were dead, Billy," I told him. There was nothing I could do. His smile widened, too wide for a human face. "I'm not dead, and neither are you." Then he started peeling his face off, revealing something pale and hungry underneath. I woke up screaming, grabbed my knife, but there was no one there. This morning I found tracks leading to and from my shelter, my size, my boot pattern, like someone had been watching me sleep. I called out to the tribe for help, used the old emergency signal my grandmother taught me, a pattern of smoke from a sacred herb fire. I didn't think anyone would see it, or care if they did, but someone came. Old Man Begay arrived at sunset, a respected elder who'd known my grandmother. He looked at my camp, at the strange symbols I'd apparently carved into the rock walls without remembering, and his face went grey. "You've woken it," he said, "the skinwalker. It's been watching you, learning you." He told me to pack up, to come with him back to the reservation where he could perform a cleansing ceremony. Said it might not be too late. I agreed. Started gathering my things. That's when I noticed Old Man Begay had no shadow. I blinked and suddenly he did. Must have been a trick of the light. He said he needed to gather some herbs for protection before we left. Walked out into the desert. I waited for hours. He never came back. At dawn I went looking for him. Found a fresh grave near the ancient burial site. The earth had been disturbed recently. I dug again. Old Man Begay was there, buried in the traditional way, facing east. His eyes were open. Dirt filled his mouth. His fingers were bloody from trying to claw his way out. On his chest was a note, written in my handwriting. "No one leaves the mesa." But I don't remember writing it. I don't remember burying him. What's happening to me? I've barricaded myself in the rock shelter, used everything I could find, my backpack, rocks, branches, to block the entrance. Not that it would stop whatever's out there, but it makes me feel better to try. Last night, it came for me. I was half asleep when I heard something scratching at the rocks outside. Soft at first, then harder, deliberate, like it wanted me to know it was there. "Who's there?" I called out, knife in hand. "Jimmy, it's me, man. Let me in." Billy Two Feathers' voice, exactly as I remembered it. My heart nearly stopped. It couldn't be him. Billy died in my arms in Vietnam. I felt his last breath on my face. "You're not real," I said. "Come on, brother. It's cold out here. We need to talk about what happened at the village, about what we did." My blood went cold. The village. We never spoke about the village. What happened there was one... I can't even write it down. "How do you know about that?" I whispered. The thing outside laughed. Billy's laugh. But wrong somehow. Hollow. "I know everything about you, Jimmy. Every secret. Every sin. Every person you've ever been." I pressed myself against the far wall of the shelter, as far from the entrance as possible. "What do you want?" "To help you remember," it said. "To help you become." Then it showed itself. Pushed aside my barricade like it was nothing. Crawled into my shelter on all fours. Too tall, too thin to be human. In the darkness, I could just make out its shape. It looked like Billy, but stretched out, wrong. Its skin hung loose in places like an ill-fitting suit. When it smiled, I saw too many teeth. I lunged with my knife, felt it sink into flesh. The thing didn't even flinch, just grabbed my wrist with a hand that felt like dried leather. "That won't work, Jimmy. We're the same, you and I." It leaned in close. I smelled death on its breath. "Want to see?" Its face changed, rippled like water. And suddenly I was looking at myself. My own face staring back, but with eyes that were ancient and hungry. I fought. used every dirty trick I learned in the war, gouged at its eyes, bit, kicked. For a moment I thought I had the upper hand, then it touched my face, just one finger against my cheek, and I remembered. Other lives, other skins, walking through the desert across hundreds of years, hunting, changing, always hungry for new faces, new stories. I saw myself through other eyes, a wounded soldier stumbling through the desert, perfect in his pain and isolation. I felt the hunger to wear his skin, to take his memories, to become him. I screamed, pushed the memories away. No, I'm James Yazzie. I was born in 1937. My mother was Mary Yazzie. My father was John Carter. I served in Vietnam with the 25th Infantry Division. I am me. The thing wearing my face laughed. Are you sure? Check your tags. I reached for my dog tags, always around my neck. They weren't there. You found them? It said. In the grave. Your grave. That's impossible, I whispered. I'm alive. Are you? How long have you been on this mesa, Jimmy? Days? Weeks? Years? I tried to remember when I'd arrived. 17 days ago. But the marks in my journal showed more, many more, and some in handwriting that wasn't quite mine. The thing moved closer. You died here, Jimmy, 50 years ago. Another lost soul looking for answers. I found you, took your skin, wore your life, but it gets confusing sometimes. The memories mix together. You're lying, I said, but my voice shook. Am I? How do you explain the Hogan you built while sleepwalking? The hunting you don't remember, the people you've buried. It reached out again. I jerked away, but there was nowhere to go. Let me show you who you really are. Its finger touched my forehead. Visions flooded my mind. The village in Vietnam. The terrible things we did there. Women. Children. The old man, begging for mercy in a language I didn't understand. But then other villages. Other times. Apache, Navajo, Spanish, American. Centuries of violence, of taking skins and memories. Of becoming other people until I forgot who I was originally. No, I gasped. That wasn't me, that was you. There is no you, there is no me, only what we've become together. It held out a hand, offered me something. The obsidian knife from my dreams. Accept it, Jimmy. Accept what you are, what we are. Stop fighting. For a moment I almost did. The weight of my guilt, real or imagined, pressed down on me. It would be so easy to give in, to believe I was already lost. Then I remembered my grandmother's voice. Her stories about evil spirits that could only enter if you invited them. Her lessons about protection. I still had one weapon left. I began to sing. The Blessing Way song she taught me as a child. My voice cracked. I stumbled over words I barely remembered. But I kept singing. The thing flinched. Its face, my face, contorted in pain. Stop that, it hissed. I sang louder, added the hand motions, tracing protection symbols in the air between us. It backed away. Its skin began to ripple, faces flashing across its features. The ranger, Old Man Begay, Billy, me, others I didn't recognize. You can't fight what you are, it snarled. But I could, I was. I reached for the pouch of corn pollen my grandmother had given me years ago. My last link to her, to my heritage. I'd kept it all this time, through the war, through everything. I threw a handful at the creature's face. It screamed, a sound no human throat could make. And then it was gone, slithered out of my shelter into the night. I didn't sleep, couldn't, kept. singing protection songs until my voice gave out. Watched the entrance until dawn, knife in hand. When morning came, I stepped outside. The desert looked the same. Beautiful. Deadly. Silent. But now I knew I wasn't alone. And I wasn't sure I was entirely myself anymore. 3 days have passed since the creature visited me. 3 days of jumping at shadows, of checking my reflection in the water pool 12 times a day to make sure the face looking back is still mine. I've been having flashes, memories that can't be mine. A woman giving birth in a hogan during a snowstorm in 1913. A Spanish conquistador dying of thirst in 1542. A Navajo child learning to weave from his grandmother in 1865. Are they real? Are they the creature's memories bleeding into mine from its touch, or am I truly losing my mind? Last night, I made a decision. I have to leave this place, have to get back to civilization, to doctors who might help me sort out what's real. I packed my few remaining supplies, left the knife behind. I don't trust it anymore. At dawn, I started the long climb down from the mesa. I was halfway down when I heard someone calling my name. "Sergeant Yazzie!" The voice was familiar. Too familiar. I looked up and saw Captain Reynolds standing on a ledge above me. My commanding officer from Vietnam. The man who ordered us into that village. He's been dead for 5 years. Suicide, I heard. "You're not real," I said. "As real as you are, Sergeant." He smiled. His teeth were wrong, too sharp, too many. "You can't leave, you know that." "Watch me," I growled, and continued climbing down. When I reached the bottom, the desert floor, I felt a surge of hope. I'd made it. Just needed to hike 8 miles to the nearest road. I turned east, toward where the road should be, and found myself facing the base of the mesa again. Confused, I checked my compass, turned south, walked for 20 minutes. The mesa loomed before me. I'd somehow circled back. I tried again. And again. Each time, no matter which direction I walked, I ended up back where I started. The sun was high overhead when I finally gave up and sank to my knees in the sand. "What do you want from me?" I shouted at the empty desert. "The truth," said a voice behind me. I turned to find an old woman standing there. Not my grandmother, but someone who reminded me of her. Her skin was like tanned leather, her eyes deep and knowing. "What truth?" I asked. "About who you really are, about what happened to you." She gestured for me to follow her. Against my better judgment, I did. She led me to a small arroyo I hadn't noticed before. At the bottom was a simple wooden cross, weathered by decades of sun and wind. Carved into it was a name, James Yazzie, 1937 to 1972, lost to the desert. My name, my birth year. "This can't be right," I whispered. "I'm not dead." "Aren't you?" the old woman asked. Her voice had changed, becoming deeper, older. When I looked at her again, she wasn't an old woman anymore. She was something else. Tall and thin, with skin that didn't quite fit. "You died here," it said. "Came seeking healing after the war, just as you remember, but the desert was harsh, and your wounds were deep. You died of exposure, alone and forgotten." "No," I said, backing away. I'm real. I'm alive. Parts of you are the parts I kept when I found your body. Your memories, your pain, your guilt. Such delicious guilt." It moved closer. I could see now how its skin was a patchwork. Different colors, different textures. Pieces of all the people it had been. "I've worn many skins over the centuries, but," it said, "but yours fits me best. Your pain called to me. The things you did in that village, the lives you took, the monster you already were." "I'm not a monster," I said, but my voice shook. "No?" Then why do you see their faces every night? The woman begging for her children's lives? The old man you shot because he wouldn't stop crying? Tears burned my eyes. We were following orders. You enjoyed it, the thing hissed. Part of you did. The dark part. The part that makes you perfect for me. It lunged suddenly, grabbing my shoulders. Its touch burned like ice. Let me show you the truth. Images flooded my mind. Me, dying slowly on this mesa 50 years ago. The creature finding my body. Taking my skin, my memories, becoming me. But then confusion. The creature as me losing track of where I ended and it began. My guilt, my trauma mixing with its ancient hunger. Both of us, trapped in a cycle of violence and feeding. It pulled back. Do you see now? You've never left this mesa. Not really, you're just another skin I've worn, another life I've lived. I staggered back, mind reeling. Could it be true? Was I dead, just a memory being worn by this thing? But I feel real, I whispered. They all do at first, it said. But in time they accept what they are, what I am, what we become together. It held out a hand. Stop fighting, James. Join with me completely. Let me take away the pain, the guilt. You'll live forever through me. For a moment, God help me, I considered it. To be free of the nightmares, the memories of what I had done in Vietnam. To stop fighting. Then I noticed something, a flicker of movement behind the creature. A familiar face. Rusty, my dog. Watching me with sad, knowing eyes, but Rusty was dead. I'd buried him myself, unless... This isn't real, I said suddenly. None of this is real. The creature's face darkened. You're not listening. No, you listen, I said, my voice stronger now. I remember now, all of it. The truth crashed over me like a wave. I never came to this mesa. After Vietnam, I had a breakdown. They put me in the VA psychiatric hospital in Phoenix. I've been there for months. The desert around us flickered like a TV with bad reception. The doctor, Dr. Reynolds, he's been trying a new therapy, making me face my guilt through stories, through visions. The creature hissed, its form becoming less solid. This is all happening in my head. You're not real. You're just my guilt, my shame, my fear of what I might become. I am real, it roared, lunging for me. But this time I stood my ground. No, you're not. You're what I'm afraid of becoming. The monster I fear is inside me. The desert wavered again. For a moment I saw white walls, a hospital bed, heard beeping machines. I'm choosing to live, Sinte, I said, to face what I did, to try to make it right. The creature screamed, a sound of pure rage and loss. It reached for me with hands that passed through my body like smoke. I'm going back now, I told it, back to the real world, back to trying to heal. If you leave me, you'll never be free of your guilt, it snarled. I know, I said quietly. That's the point. I shouldn't be free of it. I need to own it, face it. That's the only way forward. The desert began to dissolve around me, the mesa, the arroyo, the grave, all fading like mist in morning sun. The creature made one last desperate lunge, its face inches from mine. I'll always be waiting, it whispered, in your darkest moments, in your weakest times. I'll be there. I know, I said, but so will I. Everything went white. I opened my eyes to a hospital ceiling, fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant. Dr. Reynolds sitting beside my bed, notepad in hand. Welcome back, James, he said. How do you feel? I took a deep breath. My first in the real world in what felt like ages. Like I've been in the desert for a long time, I said. But I'm ready to come home now. Dr. Reynolds smiled, made a note in his pad. That's good, James. That's very good. As he left the room, I caught my reflection in the window glass, just for a second. I thought I saw something else looking back, something tall and thin, with hungry eyes, but then it was gone. Just my face. Tired, haunted. But mine. For now. My name is Ruth Holloway. I'm 33 years old, and I live alone in an abandoned fire tower deep in the Monongahela Forest of West Virginia. Most people would call me crazy for choosing to live this way, but I didn't really have a choice, not after what happened. 3 years ago, I was an air traffic controller at Pittsburgh International. I was good at my job. Too good, as it turns out. I could sense things before they happened. At first, it was small stuff, knowing when a pilot would call in before the radio crackled, or feeling a weather pattern change before it showed on radar. Then it got bigger. One night, I had this feeling, this awful crushing weight in my chest. I ordered Flight 237 to change course immediately. Even though all instruments showed clear skies, the pilot argued, but finally listened. 5 minutes later, a sudden microburst hit exactly where they would have been flying. Everyone said I saved 118 lives that night. It happened again, and again. 3 major disasters I prevented in 6 months. People started asking questions I couldn't answer. How did I know? What was my secret? The truth is, I didn't know myself. The visions, that's what I came to call them, would hit me like a wave, leaving me shaking and seeing things that hadn't happened yet. My bosses thought I was on drugs. My co-workers thought I was psychic. The FAA investigation thought I had inside information about sabotage. Nobody believed me when I said I just knew. The final straw came when I couldn't stop screaming about a plane that wasn't even on our radar yet. When they finally detected it, the plane was already in trouble, engine failure at 30,000 feet. I guided them down safely, but afterward I collapsed. Complete nervous breakdown, they called it. I couldn't go back after that. The lights, the noise, the responsibility, it was too much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw crashes that hadn't happened. I heard screams from people still alive. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. So I ran. Kept running until I found this place, an old fire lookout tower that the Forestry Service abandoned years ago. It's nothing special. 1 room at the top of a 60-foot metal frame, windows on all sides. But it's quiet here, most of the time. The forest around me is dying. Acid rain from the coal plants has killed most of the trees, leaving them like skeletons reaching up to an always grey sky. The old mining town in the valley below is nearly empty now, buildings slowly falling apart. Streams run orange with runoff. It's like the whole world is decaying around me. I've set up my little world here, radio equipment, weather monitors, enough food to last through winter. I follow the same routine every day. Check instruments at dawn, log weather patterns, monitor radio frequencies, sleep when I can. The routine keeps me sane, mostly. The worst part is the fog. It rolls through the valleys like something alive, swallowing everything in its path. When the fog comes, I can't see beyond the railing of my tower. I can't hear anything except the metal frame creaking in the wind. It's like being trapped in a tiny island floating in a sea of nothing. Funny thing is, I came here to escape my visions, but they've only gotten stronger. Out here, with nothing to distract me, I can feel things more clearly. Weather changes, animal movements, and something else, something watching. I first noticed it last month. A strange feeling of being observed. Then came the signals on my radio. Voices talking about disasters that hadn't happened yet. At first I thought it was just interference, picking up broadcasts from somewhere else, but then I heard my own voice among them, describing things I'd never said. That's when I saw the eyes for the first time. Red, glowing points in the darkness around my tower, only visible when I wasn't looking directly at them. When I turned to see, they vanished, but I knew they were still there, watching. Waiting, I should leave this place. Every instinct tells me to run, but where would I go? The visions would follow me. And besides, I can't shake the feeling that I'm here for a reason. That something called me to this tower, to this dying forest, to these red eyes in the dark. Something wants to show me what's coming next, and I'm afraid it's something terrible. I've been keeping track of days on a wall calendar, but I'm not sure I trust it anymore. Time feels wrong here. Sometimes the sun seems to hang in the sky for too long. Other times, night falls in what feels like minutes. Yesterday, I swear I crossed off June 15th, but this morning the calendar showed June 12th. I crossed it off again, but I can't shake the feeling that something's not right. The radio started acting strange last week. I was doing my usual scan of emergency frequencies when I picked up a distress call from a small aircraft. The pilot's voice was calm at first, then panicked as he reported engine failure. I grabbed my logbook to note the coordinates, but before I could write anything down, the transmission cut off. I waited for news of a crash, but nothing came. The next day, I heard the exact same distress call, word for word. This time, I was ready and wrote down everything. I called the nearest ranger station on my emergency phone, but they said no planes had gone down. No planes had even reported trouble. 3 days later, a news bulletin broke through the static. A small plane had crashed in the mountains 20 miles north. The time and location matched my notes exactly. But how did I hear it happen days before it actually did? The birds came next. I woke up at dawn to find hundreds of dead ravens in a perfect circle around the base of my tower. Their bodies were arranged like the numbers on a clock, all facing inward. I climbed down to check, even though my vertigo made the descent torture, but when I reached the ground, the birds were gone. Not a feather remained. But I know what I saw. That night, I heard the sound of heavy wings beating against the air. Something big circled the tower, around and around, just out of sight in the darkness. The whole structure swayed slightly as if something had landed on the roof. I grabbed my flashlight but couldn't bring myself to look outside. In the morning, I found strange marks on the railing, 3 parallel scratches deep in the metal like something with massive claws had gripped it. I told myself it was just damage from a storm, but I know better. Metal doesn't tear like that in the wind. My dreams have gotten worse. I see disasters with such clarity now. A bus full of children sliding off an icy bridge, a gas explosion in the mining town below, a dam breaking and flooding the valley. These dreams don't feel like dreams, they feel like memories, except they're of things that haven't happened yet. Yesterday, I found a newspaper that I don't remember bringing to the tower. The headline described the collapse of the old Peterson Bridge on Route 16. 8 people dead, 3 cars in the river. The paper was dated next Tuesday. I tried calling the county sheriff's office, but the line was dead. My emergency radio picked up nothing but static. I thought about hiking out to warn someone, but the fog rolled in thick and heavy, making it impossible to see the trail. Besides, who would believe the crazy lady from the fire tower? This morning I woke to find my cat, Edison, sitting perfectly still on the windowsill, staring outside. I've had him since I moved here, my only company in this lonely place. But when I called his name, he didn't move. I walked over and found his eyes wide open, fixed on something in the distance. When I touched him, his body was cold and stiff, like he'd been dead for hours. But I'd heard him meowing just minutes before. I looked out the window to see what he had been staring at. The fog had cleared just enough to reveal a tall, dark figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was at least 7 feet tall, with what looked like huge wings folded against its back. Even from this distance, I could see 2 points of red light where its face should be. As soon as I saw it, a splitting headache hit me like a hammer. Visions flashed through my mind, the bridge collapsing, people screaming, water rushing, so real I could feel the cold spray on my face. When my eyes cleared, the figure was gone, but a voice came through on my radio, clear as day. It was my voice, describing the bridge collapse in perfect detail. How it would start with a small crack in the eastern support, how the first car would try to back up when the driver felt the vibrations, how the school bus would almost make it across before the final collapse. I've spent all day checking and rechecking my equipment. The radio is working fine. I can pick up normal broadcasts from the ranger station and the weather service, but every few hours My own voice breaks through, describing disasters yet to come. The strange thing is, I'm not afraid anymore. Instead, I feel a weird sense of purpose, like I'm meant to be here in this tower, receiving these messages, but from what and why me? The sun is setting now, and I can see them again, red eyes in the darkness, blinking in and out of sight between the dead trees, more of them tonight. Dozens, all watching, all waiting. And I'm starting to think they want me to do something about what I'm seeing, before it's too late. I'm losing track of time completely now. The calendar on my wall keeps changing. Sometimes days disappear, sometimes they repeat. I've started marking the wall directly with a knife, one scratch for each sunrise I see. Even that doesn't help much. There are mornings when I find more scratches than I remember making. The visions are getting worse. They come without warning now, hitting me like a wave that knocks me to the floor. Yesterday, at least I think it was yesterday, I was making coffee when suddenly I wasn't in the tower anymore. I was standing on Peterson Bridge, feeling it shake under my feet. I could smell the river below, hear the concrete cracking. I watched as the first car tried to back up, just like my voice on the radio had described. I saw the school bus full of kids trying to speed across. I felt the final collapse, the terrible drop as the whole structure gave way. When I came back to myself, I was curled up on the floor of the tower. My coffee had spilled everywhere, but it wasn't hot anymore. It was ice cold, like it had been sitting there for hours. The strangest thing happened that night. I was scanning through radio frequencies, trying to find any news about the bridge, when I picked up a conversation between two rescue workers. They were discussing a search party sent up to check on the fire tower, on me. Someone had reported no contact from this station for over a week. The rescue team never made it here. The workers on the radio were organizing a second search party because the first team had been found crushed beneath a collapsed bridge. Peterson Bridge, the same one from my visions. I tried calling the ranger station immediately, but all I got was static. I kept trying different channels until I found an emergency broadcast. Peterson Bridge had collapsed that afternoon, exactly as I'd seen it. 8 people dead, including a search and rescue team heading to my tower. They died coming to find me, because of me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The red eyes were everywhere outside my windows, blinking in the darkness. Sometimes they seemed to float in the air. Sometimes they moved through the trees, always watching. Around midnight, I heard something heavy land on the roof of the tower. The whole structure swayed and creaked. Dust fell from the ceiling. Edison's body, which I hadn't been able to bring myself to move from the windowsill, suddenly fell to the floor. When I picked him up, I saw that his eyes were gone, just empty sockets, staring up at me. I dropped his body and backed away. That's when I noticed something on my table that hadn't been there before, a newspaper clipping about a dam failure. 12 miles from here, the old mining company dam that held back millions of gallons of contaminated water. According to the article, the dam would fail next week, flooding the valley and the remains of the mining town with toxic sludge. Dozens would die. The article was written in my handwriting, but I have no memory of writing it. This morning I found something even more disturbing. In the corner of my small tower room, partially hidden behind my supply shelf, was a kind of shrine I don't remember building. Photos of people I've never met, newspaper clippings, personal items like watches and glasses, all arranged in a circle around a crude drawing of a winged figure with red eyes. The photos were of people from my visions, the bus driver from the bridge collapse, miners from the town below, families living downstream from the dam. Future victims. But how did I get their pictures? When did I build this shrine? I'm starting to think I'm doing things I can't remember, moving around, collecting things, writing messages to myself, all while in some kind of trance. It terrifies me to think of what else I might be doing without knowing. The radio keeps broadcasting my voice, predicting disasters. Now I hear other voices too, crying for help, describing accidents that haven't happened yet, calling my name. Sometimes the voices are so loud I have to turn the radio off, but even then I can still hear them, like they're coming from inside my head. I tried to leave the tower yesterday, packed a bag with essentials, and started climbing down the metal stairs. I made it halfway before the vertigo hit me so hard I nearly fell. Then the fog rolled in, thicker than I've ever seen it. I couldn't even see the steps right in front of me. And from somewhere in that fog I heard wings beating. Heavy, powerful wings, getting closer. I ran back up to the tower and locked the door. I'm not sure if it's keeping something out or keeping me in. Last night I saw the creature clearly for the first time. The fog had cleared, and the moon was bright enough to see the clearing around my tower. It stood just at the edge of the trees, a tall, human-like figure with massive wings spread behind it. Its skin seemed to absorb the moonlight like a hole cut into the night. The only features I could make out were those glowing red eyes. It looked right at me. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, knowledge poured into my mind like water from a broken dam. Images of disasters yet to come. Not just the local bridge or dam, but bigger things. War, famine, climate collapse, mass extinction, all rushing toward us, inevitable as gravity. The pain was unbearable. I screamed until my throat was raw, but I couldn't look away. The creature, the Mothman, I somehow knew it was called, held me in its gaze for what felt like hours. When it finally released me and melted back into the forest, I collapsed. I woke up this morning with blood dried on my face. I'd scratched myself around my eyes, deep enough to leave marks. On the wall, written in what looked like my own blood, were the words, "You must warn them." The dam. I have to warn people about the dam before it breaks, but how? Nobody would believe me. The phone lines are still dead. The radio only broadcasts the voices now, and I'm afraid if I try to leave, the Mothman won't let me go. I keep thinking about those search and rescue workers who died on the bridge. They died because of me, because they were coming to help me. What if my warnings only make things worse? What if I'm not meant to prevent these disasters, but somehow causing them? The sun is setting again. I can feel the red eyes watching, waiting. And somewhere deep inside, I know the Mothman is coming back tonight. It has more to show me, more to tell me, and God help me, I think I'm starting to understand why I haven't slept in days. Can't risk closing my eyes. Every time I do, the visions come stronger than before. They're not just flashes now. They're complete scenes playing out in my head, as real as memories. This morning I found myself standing at my desk, not remembering how I got there. In front of me was a detailed map of the valley, with the dam clearly marked. I'd drawn evacuation routes, safe zones, time estimates. My handwriting, but I don't remember making it. Next to the map was a list of names, people who lived downstream from the dam. How do I know these people? I've never met them. I've been trying to warn someone about the dam. Yesterday, I finally got the emergency radio working and reached the ranger station. I told them about my fears, about the cracks I'd seen forming in the dam's concrete face. The ranger was polite, but dismissive. He said the dam was inspected last month and deemed safe. When I pressed harder, his voice changed. He asked if I was still having those episodes. They know about my past, about why I left my job. No one's going to believe me. Last night, the Mothman returned. I was sitting by the window watching the valley below when all the electronics in the tower went crazy. My radio screeched with static. The lights flickered. Even my watch stopped. The air felt heavy, like right before a lightning strike. It appeared on the railing of my tower, no longer keeping its distance. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Its body was like a man's, but wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin. The wings stretched at least 15 feet when fully open, black against the night sky. And those eyes, red like embers, but cold. So cold. I should have been paralyzed with fear, but instead I felt a strange calm, like meeting someone I'd been waiting for my whole life. It didn't speak, not with words, but I understood it all the same. Images and feelings flowed from its mind to mine. It showed me the dam again, showed me exactly when and how it would fail, showed me the wave of toxic water that would sweep away the mining town, showed me the faces of those who would die. Then it showed me something else, a much worse disaster that would happen if the dam didn't fail now. Some kind of industrial accident at the old chemical plant downstream. Hundreds dead instead of dozens, poison spreading through the groundwater, affecting towns miles away. The message was clear: the smaller disaster prevents the larger one, a sacrifice to avoid greater suffering. When it left, I found myself holding a flare gun I keep for emergencies. There was a single thought in my head: I could use this to signal someone, or I could use it to make sure the dam fails exactly when it's supposed to. I put the flare gun away, hands shaking. I'm not a killer. I can't be responsible for anyone's death, even to save others. There has to be another way. This morning I tried one last desperate attempt. I called the mining company directly. Somehow I had their private number written in my notes. A man named Harris answered, the safety director. I told him I was with the Environmental Protection Agency doing an emergency inspection report. I described the exact weaknesses in the dam, using technical terms I shouldn't. No. He got quiet. Asked who I really was. Before I could answer, he hung up. An hour later, my radio picked up chatter between mining company vehicles. They were sending a team to inspect the dam right away. They were taking my warning seriously. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. That hope died 3 hours later when I heard the emergency broadcasts. A team of 4 mining executives, including Safety Director Harris, had been at the dam when a section suddenly gave way. Their vehicle was swept into the water. No survivors. They died because of me, because I warned them, just like the search and rescue team. But the dam didn't completely fail. The breach was small, caught in time. Emergency crews were bringing in equipment to shore it up. Evacuation orders were issued for the valley, just in case. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt a crushing sense of dread. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. The Mothman had shown me a complete failure, not a partial one. Something worse was coming. That night, as I watched from my tower, I saw them, workers with floodlights, trying to fix the dam before it completely gave way. And I saw something else. Dark shapes circling above them. Dozens of massive ravens, bigger than any birds I'd ever seen, diving at the workers, driving them away from their equipment. The radio broadcasts became frantic. Workers reported being attacked by birds, equipment failures, rising water levels. At midnight, I heard the sound I'd been dreading, a deep bass rumble that shook the entire valley. Even from miles away, I could see it happen. The dam didn't just break, it disintegrated. A wall of dark water surged through the valley, sweeping away everything in its path. The mining town disappeared in minutes. The evacuation had saved many, but not all. The emergency broadcast confirmed 23 dead, exactly the number the Mothman had shown me. As I watched the destruction below, I felt the tower shake. The Mothman had returned, landing on the roof with enough force to make the whole structure sway. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. "Why show me if I can't stop it?" I screamed at the ceiling. "What's the point of these visions if everyone dies anyway?" The tower went ice cold. The Mothman appeared inside my room, something it had never done before. Its presence filled the small space, wings folded but still massive. I felt its gaze lock onto mine, and another vision slammed into me. I saw the chemical plant downstream. I saw how the toxic water from the dam failure had shut it down. And then I saw what would have happened 3 days later if the plant had still been operating, a catastrophic explosion that would have released a cloud of poison gas across 3 counties. Thousands dead, children dying in their beds. The message was brutally clear. 23 dead now to save thousands later. As the vision faded, I found myself curled up on the floor, sobbing. The Mothman was gone, but it had left something behind, a newspaper clipping dated 2 weeks from now, describing how the dam failure had revealed criminal negligence by the mining company, how safety measures had been ignored for years, how the disaster had prompted new regulations that would prevent similar catastrophes across the country. Small sacrifices for greater goods, A terrible calculus of death and life. I've been sitting here for hours, watching the emergency lights in the valley below, thinking about what the Mothman has shown me, wondering what it wants from me. And I've made a discovery that chills me to my bones. Among my papers, I found a suicide note. In my handwriting, dated tomorrow. I don't remember writing it, but it describes exactly how I'm feeling right now. Trapped between knowing the future and being powerless to change it. Driven mad by visions I can't escape. The note ends with a single line: I'm sorry for what comes next. What comes next? What am I going to do? The sun is rising now. The valley below is a scene of destruction and rescue efforts. And in the growing light, I can see something on the railing outside my window. A single black feather, larger than any bird's should be. I think I understand now. I think I know what the Mothman wants from me. And I'm terrified of what that means. I don't think I'm alive anymore. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but the evidence is piling up. This morning I tried to call the ranger station again. A woman answered, and I told her who I was. There was a long silence, then she said, "This isn't funny. Ruth Holloway died 3 months ago." At first I thought it was some kind of sick joke, but then she told me how I died, fell from the tower during a storm. They found my body at the base, broken beyond recognition, only identified me by the ID in my wallet. "So who am I talking to?" she demanded. I hung up. I looked in my small mirror for the first time in weeks. My face looked, wrong. Too pale. My eyes sunken and dark. When I touched my skin, I barely felt it. I tried other tests, cut my finger with a knife, no blood. Held my breath for as long as I could, 5 minutes, then 10, with no need to inhale. Pressed my fingers against my wrist, no pulse. I should be terrified, but strangely, I feel calm. Like part of me has known this all along. It explains so much why no one comes to check on me anymore, why I can see disasters before they happen, why the Mothman chose me. I'm not a living prophet. I'm a ghost bound to this tower, caught between worlds, able to see what was, what is, and what will be. Last night, the Mothman came again. This time I didn't wait for it to share visions. I had questions. "Am I dead, son?" I asked when it appeared on the railing. It didn't answer with words, but I felt its response anyway. Yes and no. My body died, but something kept my spirit here, my natural ability to see the future, amplified by the Mothman's power. "What are you, sir?" I asked next. The answer came in flashes of understanding. The Mothman isn't a creature, not really. It's more like a force, ancient and vast. It exists outside of time as we understand it, seeing all possible futures simultaneously. It doesn't cause disasters, it merely knows when they'll happen. For centuries, it has chosen human conduits to help it warn others. People with natural sensitivity, like me. It makes us into prophets, heralds of what's to come. But why, I asked, and Kisa, if we can't stop these disasters, what's the point of knowing about them? The Mothman spread its massive wings, and I felt a rush of images flow into my mind. I saw hundreds of disasters throughout history, some that happened, some that didn't. I saw how small warnings led to lives saved, how one tragedy prevented a greater one. I saw myself in my old job, directing planes away from storms I somehow sensed coming. I hadn't just been lucky. The Mothman had been with me even then, whispering warnings I didn't know I was hearing. It showed me how it had called me to this tower after my breakdown, how it had been grooming me, preparing me for a larger purpose. Then it showed me something new, a vision more terrible than anything before. I saw flashes of destruction on a scale I couldn't comprehend. Cities in ruins, skies dark with ash, millions dead or dying. Something was coming, something far worse than a collapsed bridge or a broken dam, and somehow I was meant to help prevent it. As the vision faded, I found myself on the floor of the tower, shaking. The Mothman stood over me, those red eyes boring into mine. "I can't," I whispered. "I'm just one person. I couldn't even save 23 people in a mining town. How am I supposed to stop that?" The Mothman reached out. The first time it had ever tried to touch me, its hand was cold and not quite solid, passing through my arm like smoke. But I felt its meaning clearly enough. I wasn't alone. There were others like me, other prophets, other warnings, all part of a vast, complex web of preventions spanning centuries. Small sacrifices to prevent greater calamities, a delicate balance maintained by the Mothman and those it chose. "Why me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. My gift for prediction, my isolation, my willingness to believe the impossible. I was perfect for this role, and now that I was no longer truly alive, I could serve as a conduit without the limitations of a human body or mind. The Mothman showed me one final vision, myself, standing at the window of this tower for years to come, watching over the valley, sending out warnings, guiding others with the gift to their own towers, their own posts, a network of watchers, all with the same red eyes reflecting in their pupils. I understood then. I wasn't just a prophet. I was becoming like it, a being between worlds, a guardian against greater disasters. The transformation had already begun the moment I died. My fall from the tower wasn't an accident. I had jumped, willingly sacrificing my human life to gain this new sight, this new purpose I just hadn't remembered until now. As dawn broke, the Mothman faded away, but I knew it wasn't really gone. It would never be gone now. We were connected, bound by purpose and power. I looked down at my hands and noticed something new. A faint red glow in my fingertips, like embers beneath my skin. When I glanced in the mirror, my eyes flickered with the same red light. Not human anymore, not quite Mothman either, something in between. Today I found a new stack of newspapers on my desk, all describing disasters yet to come. With them was a map marked with locations of other towers, other watchers, people I need to contact, warnings I need to send. I understand my role now. I can't stop every disaster. Some must happen to prevent worse ones, but I can help minimize the damage, guide those with the gift, prepare the world for what's coming. The radio crackles with voices, some human, some definitely not. Messages from other watchers, other towers. I'm not alone. Outside my window, the dead forest seems less grim now. I can see patterns in the bare branches, messages written in the arrangement of skeletal trees. The fog that rolls through the valleys carries whispers I'm learning to interpret. I still don't know what the great disaster is that we're all working to prevent. The Mothman shows me only pieces, fragments of a future too. Terrible to comprehend all at once. But I know my part in it now. My name is Ruth Holloway. I was an air traffic controller. Then I was a hermit. Then I died. Now I am something else. Eyes in the sky watching for what comes next. A prophet of the Mothman. A herald of necessary disasters. And if you're reading this journal I've left behind, it means you have the gift too. It means the Mothman has chosen you. Look for the red eyes in the darkness. Listen for the beating of heavy wings. Don't fight the visions when they come. Accept your role in what must happen. Small sacrifices now for the greater good later. I'll be watching from my tower. I'll help guide you when I can. But remember, not all warnings are meant to prevent disaster. Sometimes they're simply preparing you for what must come. The eyes are always watching. The prophet is always speaking. All you have to do is listen. My name is Daniel Russo. I used to be Father Russo, but I don't think I deserve that title anymore. Not after what I saw in Vietnam, not after what I've become. The old monastery I call home now sits deep in the Adirondack Mountains. 3 days of hard hiking from the nearest road. That's why I chose it. No one comes here, especially not in winter, and this winter came early, a vicious October blizzard that's trapped me here for months now. I wake up every morning to the same view. Stone walls covered in frost, my breath hanging in clouds before my face. The generator's running low on fuel. Soon I'll be down to just candles. Their light makes the shadows dance on these old Gothic walls, turning familiar corners into places I don't recognize. Outside my window, the frozen lake reflects the moonlight in ways that play tricks on my eyes. Sometimes I think I see someone standing on the ice watching. But it's just my mind playing tricks. The forest around me is dead. All black trees with branches like bony fingers reaching for the sky. Our Father who art in heaven. I still say the prayers every morning and night. Don't know why. Habit, I guess. After watching young men die in my arms in Vietnam, begging God for help that never came, I couldn't be a priest anymore. But my hands still find my rosary beads without thinking. My left hand doesn't work so well anymore. Frostbite from when I first arrived makes everything harder, chopping wood, setting traps for food, even turning pages in my Bible. The fingers are stiff, blackened at the tips. A constant reminder of my weakness. I came here to find peace. To find redemption, maybe. Instead, I found silence so complete it roars in my ears. When that silence breaks, when the old wood of this place creaks and groans, it sounds almost like the men I couldn't save, calling out from their hospital beds. Last night, I dreamed of them again. Sergeant Miller, with half his face gone, still trying to tell me about his baby girl back home. Private Jenkins begging me to make the pain stop. In my dreams, I never have answers for them. In my dreams, sometimes I'm the one hurting them. I know how to survive out here. That's not what worries me. I've got enough dried food to last months. I know how to hunt, how to preserve meat, how to stay warm when the temperature drops to 30 below. What I don't know is how to quiet the voices in my head. The memories. The wind howls through the broken stained glass windows, making sounds like screaming. At first it bothered me. Now it's almost company. Better than the days when the air is so cold and still that my frozen breath seems to hang in front of me, whispering things I can't quite hear. I was supposed to find peace in this isolation. That's what I told myself when I hiked away from civilization 4 months ago. But peace feels further away with each passing day. And lately I've started to wonder if I'm really alone out here after all. Something about this place feels wrong. Watching. Waiting. And as the days grow shorter and the nights stretch longer, I can't shake the feeling that whatever it is, it's getting closer. It started with the wine. Not that I drink much anymore, but I keep a bottle of communion wine for my daily rituals. Old habits die hard, I guess. That morning I went to the small altar I'd set up in what used to be the monastery's chapel. The chalice I'd filled with wine the night before was shattered on the stone floor. The liquid inside wasn't wine anymore. It was thick and red, like blood, and it didn't freeze despite the cold that turned my breath to ice. I told myself it was just the wine going bad. I cleaned it up, my stiff fingers struggling with the cloth. But I couldn't explain the footprints I found later that day. They circled the monastery, huge tracks pressed deep in the snow. The stride between them was too long for any human. I followed them for a while, my hunting rifle cold against my shoulder. They just went round and round the building like whatever made them was pacing, looking for a way in. Then they just stopped, like whatever it was had simply vanished or flown away. Just a moose, I told myself, or maybe a bear that hasn't gone to hibernate, but I knew better. I've tracked game all my life. These weren't animal tracks. That night, the blizzard got worse. The wind howled so loud I could barely hear myself think. But beneath the wind, there was something else. Voices, chanting in Latin, the old prayers I used to know by heart. They sounded like the men from my unit in Vietnam. Men who had died with my hand on their foreheads, giving last rites I no longer believed in. I grabbed my flashlight and threw open the door, shouting into the storm. The voices stopped. Nothing but swirling snow and darkness answered me. The days kept getting shorter. By December, the sun didn't rise until nearly noon, and it was dark again by 3. That's not normal, even this far north. I checked my watch against the weather radio, the only connection I had to the outside world. The radio said it was 10 in the morning, but outside my window was midnight black. The shadows started to move wrong. I'd be sitting by my small fire, and I'd catch movement from the corner of my eye. My own shadow stretching across the wall, reaching out like it was trying to grab something. When I turned to look directly at it, it snapped back to normal. Just tricks of the light, I told myself, just my mind playing tricks. Then the radio started broadcasting my own voice. I was making my weekly check of the weather band, cranking the old radio to life when I heard it. My voice, desperate, afraid. "This is Father Daniel Russo. I'm trapped. Please, someone there. They're coming for me. I can't hold them off much longer." I dropped the radio like it had burned me. That message, I'd never sent it, never spoken those words, but it was my voice, no doubt about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw shapes moving in the darkness. I got up to check the monastery's old stone walls, running my good hand along them for comfort. My fingers found something embedded in the mortar between the stones. Small, hard objects. I held my lantern closer. Teeth. Human teeth, pushed into the wall. And the mortar around them was damp, like fresh blood. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. That's when I heard it. Children singing hymns, their voices echoing up from somewhere beneath the floor. From the catacombs, I'd found my first week here, but had been too scared to fully explore. There are no children for 100 miles. No one but me. I stared at my reflection in one of the old, warped windows. For a second, just a split second, I swear my reflection smiled at me when I wasn't smiling. That night I dreamed I was eating raw meat, tearing at it with my teeth, blood running down my chin. It tasted so good, so right. When I woke up, there was blood under my fingernails and I couldn't remember why. Something is in here with me, something is watching me, and I think it's getting hungry. I don't know what day it is anymore. My calendar says January, but it feels like I've been here for years. The nights keep getting longer. Sometimes I think the sun won't come back at all. Yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, I finally got the courage to go down into the catacombs. The old stone steps spiral down under the monastery, so narrow my shoulders scraped the walls. My flashlight made my shadow jump and dance ahead of me, like it was eager to get down there. The air in the catacombs was different. Not just stale, but wrong somehow, like it had been breathed in and out too many times. The walls were lined with shelves, and on the shelves were bones, hundreds of them, monks who had lived and died here centuries ago. Some of the skulls were turned to watch me as I passed. I know I didn't imagine that. They had been facing the wall when I first saw them, but when I looked back, they had turned, their empty eye sockets following me. "Hello?" I called out, feeling stupid. My voice echoed back to me, but different, deeper, mocking. I found an old journal down there, its pages yellow and brittle. Most of it was in Latin, which I could still read from my priest days. It talked about something called a Wendigo, an ancient spirit that feeds on human flesh and human misery. The more it eats, the hungrier it gets. The monks wrote that they had trapped one beneath the monastery, binding it with prayers and symbols carved into the foundation stones. That night, time started to slip. I would look at my watch and see it was 8:15. I would blink, and it would still be 8:15. I would work on splitting wood for an hour, check again, and still 8:15. But other times, hours would pass in what felt like minutes. I would sit down to eat breakfast, and suddenly it would be dark outside. My dreams got worse. I started dreaming I was hunting, but not for deer or rabbits, for people. I would wake up in different places than where I fell asleep. Once I woke up outside in the snow barefoot with no memory of how I got there. The worst part is the hunger. No matter how much I eat, I'm still starving. The dried food I brought tastes like ash in my mouth. Only in my dreams, when I'm tearing into raw meat, does the hunger ease. I found scratches on the inside of my door yesterday, like someone, or something, was trying to claw its way out, but I'm the only one here. At least I thought I was. I've started seeing a tall, thin shape, moving through the trees at the edge of the clearing. Too tall to be human. When it turns its head toward me, I see the outline of huge antlers against the sky, eyes that glow white in the darkness. Last night, I heard it outside my door, not trying to get in this time, just standing there, breathing, a wet, hungry sound. "Daniel," it said in the voice of Sergeant Miller. "Let me in, Father. I'm hurt bad. I need last rites." I put my hands over my ears and prayed until dawn. Not for protection, I don't believe in that anymore. I prayed for it to be quick when it finally gets me, because I'm starting to think that maybe it already has. Maybe I've been feeding it all along without knowing. I keep finding these gaps in my memory, things I've apparently done but can't remember, notes in my handwriting that I don't recall writing, a trap line I don't remember setting. This morning I found a fresh page in my journal, my handwriting, but the words don't make sense. The hunger grows, the flesh sustains, I am becoming, I am starving, I am endless. The worst part is, when I read those words, they make a horrible kind of sense, like some part of me understands exactly what they mean. I think I might be losing my mind out here, or maybe I'm finding a terrible truth. Either way, I don't think I'll be leaving this place. Not as Daniel Russo, anyway. I wasn't alone after all. A forest ranger found his way to the monastery during a break in the storm. I heard him calling outside, his voice nearly lost in the wind. For a moment I thought it was another trick, the thing in the woods using someone else's voice to lure me out. But when I opened the door, there he was, a real person. Park Ranger Mike Collins, according to his badge. He looked so normal it hurt my eyes, like staring at the sun after months in darkness. "Been looking for you, Father Russo," he said, stomping snow from his boots. "Got a report of smoke from this area. This place is technically state land, you know." I let him in, made him coffee. My hands shook as I poured it. A real person, proof that the world outside still existed. "You shouldn't be up here alone," he told me, looking around at my sparse living space. "Especially not with that storm front coming in. They're saying it could be the worst in 50 years. I tried to act normal, tried to hide how the sight of him made my stomach clench with a hunger I couldn't explain. He stayed for dinner. I made stew from the last of my canned goods. He ate it happily, told me stories about his family, his job, normal things, but all I could focus on was the pulse in his neck, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath. I excused myself, locked myself in what used to be the monastery's bathroom, splashed icy water on my face. "Get a grip," I told my reflection. He's just a man, just a visitor. My reflection grinned back at me with teeth that looked too sharp. That night, I gave Ranger Collins the small guest room. I took extra blankets to the chapel as far from him as possible. I fell asleep praying for the first time in months. Real prayers. Desperate ones. I woke to screaming. By the time I got to the guest room, the screaming had stopped. The door was open, the bed was empty, sheets thrown back. A trail of dark droplets led to the window which stood open to the howling storm. I followed the trail outside into the snow. The moon was full and red, a blood moon, hanging low over the trees. By its light I saw what was left of Ranger Collins. His body was arranged against a tree, arms stretched out to the sides, legs together like a crucifixion. His chest was open. Something had torn through his ribs, taken what was inside. I fell to my knees in the snow. This couldn't be real. Had to be another nightmare. Then I saw my hands, covered in blood. Under my fingernails, smeared up to my elbows. I ran back to the monastery, tore off my clothes, scrubbed my skin until it was raw. But I could still smell the blood. Still taste copper in the back of my throat. Did I do this? Could I have done this? I searched the monastery like a madman, looking for any sign of what really happened. In the basement, beneath a stack of old furniture, I found a hidden door I'd never noticed before. It led to a room that smelled like a slaughterhouse. 3 backpacks sat against one wall, ID cards and driver's licenses scattered on the floor. Hikers. 3 of them. From last summer, according to the dates on their permits. On the wall above them, someone had pinned a piece of paper, a wanted poster with my face on it. Daniel Russo, wanted for questioning in connection with the disappearance of 3 hikers in Adirondack State Park, July 1976. But that was impossible. I wasn't even here in July. I didn't arrive until September. Did I? My head started to throb, memories shifting like ice breaking up on the lake. I remembered arriving in summer, not fall. Remembered watching hikers from the trees, following them to their campsite. No. Those weren't my memories, couldn't be. I stumbled back upstairs into the kitchen, opened the freezer where I kept my meat. Venison, I'd thought. From deer I'd trapped and hunted. I looked at it now with new eyes, saw the truth of what I'd been eating all these months. The hunger hit me then, worse than ever before, a gnawing emptiness that felt like it could swallow the world. Outside, something moved past the window, tall and thin, with a head like an elk's skull and antlers that scraped the night sky. White eyes, glowing like embers. It saw me looking, and it smiled. I know what it is now. The Wendigo. The thing the monks trapped here centuries ago. The thing that's been watching me, changing me, feeding on my despair. And I think I know why it chose me, what it wants. I'm afraid it's already too late to stop it. I locked myself in the chapel that night, a silver cross clutched in my good hand. Not because I believed it would protect me, but because I needed something to hold on to, something to remind me I was still human. The thing outside, the Wendigo, circled the monastery all night. I could hear its footsteps crunching in the snow, its breathing like wind through dead leaves. Sometimes it would stop outside a window, tap its long fingers against the glass, and call to me with voices I knew. "Daniel, let me in. I'm cold out here," my mother's voice, dead 10 years now. "Father, I need confession," one of my soldiers from Vietnam. "It's just me, Daniel, the ranger. I'm not dead. You imagined it all." Ranger Collins, whose blood was still crusted under my fingernails. Dawn came after what felt like days. The chapel windows slowly brightened from black to grey. The voices stopped. I must have fallen asleep then, because suddenly I was dreaming. In my dream I stood in a forest clearing under a blood-red moon. Across from me was me. Another Daniel Russo, but different. His skin was stretched too tight over his bones. His eyes were hollow, hungry pits. When he smiled, his teeth were filed to points. "Do you understand yet?" he asked me. "You're the Wendigo," I said. He laughed. "No, I'm you, what you're becoming, what you've been becoming since you first set foot in this place." "I don't understand." "The Wendigo isn't a creature, Daniel. It's a hunger, a spirit that gets inside you, changes you from within, makes you hunger for human flesh, and the more you eat, the hungrier you get." I shook my head. "No, I'm not. I wouldn't." "But you have," he said. "The ranger, the hikers last summer. You don't remember because you don't want to, but your body remembers, your belly remembers." I woke with a gasp, my stomach cramping with hunger, so intense I doubled over. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sun shone blindingly bright on the white landscape. It looked almost peaceful. I went to my room, dug through my few possessions until I found it. My journal from when I first arrived. I flipped through the pages, reading entries I had no memory of writing. July 12th. Found an abandoned monastery today. Perfect place to rest before moving on. July 15th. Dreamed of eating last night. Woke up with blood in my mouth. There are scratches on the inside of the door. July 30th. 3 hikers came today. Young, strong. I watched them from the trees. They're camping by the lake. August 1st. I did something terrible. I can still taste them. God forgive me. August 15, the hunger is getting worse. I found teeth in my stool, human teeth. I'm changing. September 20th, winter is coming early. Good, no more hikers, no more temptation. I dropped the journal like it had burned me. Those early entries, I had no memory of writing them, no memory of being here in July or August. But the last entry I remembered writing about the early winter, thinking it would be my salvation. I ran to the bathroom, looked at myself in the cracked mirror. My face was gaunt, skin stretched tight over my cheekbones. My eyes seemed different. Hungry, I opened my mouth and saw with horror that my teeth had changed. The canines were longer, sharper. I was becoming the Wendigo, or maybe it had already become me. I fled the bathroom, ran through the monastery looking for answers. In the main hall, I found something I'd never noticed before. Symbols carved into the stone floor forming a perfect circle. Ancient Native American signs, glowing faintly with an inner light. I recognized them from the journal I'd found in the catacombs. Binding symbols. The monks hadn't trapped the Wendigo beneath the monastery, they'd trapped it inside the monastery. These symbols formed a cage, keeping it from escaping into the wider world. But a cage needs a prisoner. When the last monk died, the Wendigo needed a new host. It had been waiting for someone like me, someone lost, desperate, someone whose soul was already half in the shadow world. As I stood there, I felt a pull toward the forest, an urge to walk out the door past the binding symbols, carrying the Wendigo's hunger with me, spreading it to the outside world. I fought it, grabbed onto a stone pillar to keep myself from moving. That's when I heard it again, the voice of the Wendigo, but this time it wasn't outside, it was inside my head. "You figured it out," it said. "Clever priest." "What do you want from me?" I whispered. "Freedom," it replied. "The monks trapped me here centuries ago, but they're gone now. Only you remain, my last obstacle. And if I refuse to leave, if I stay here and starve?" The Wendigo laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "Then we both starve, for a while, but I've waited centuries, Daniel. I can wait a few more months, until the spring thaw brings new hikers, new blood." It showed me visions then, children from the town 30 miles away, coming to explore the haunted monastery when the snow melts, a family on a camping trip stumbling upon my home, all of them falling prey to what I was becoming. Unless I stopped it now, unless I found a way to end this once and for all, I knew what I had to do. The binding symbols kept the Wendigo trapped in the monastery, but it needed a host, a human body to escape. If I died here, it would be trapped again until someone else came along. I couldn't let that happen. The storm had cleared, but night was falling fast. The blood moon was rising again, casting everything in a red glow. I gathered what I needed: gasoline from the generator, matches, my silver cross, and the old journal I'd found in the catacombs. The journal mentioned fire and silver, the only things that could hurt the Wendigo, not kill it, nothing could kill it completely, but weaken it enough to bind it more securely. I started in the basement, pouring gasoline over the hidden room with its terrible evidence, over the bones in the catacombs. I worked my way up through the monastery, soaking everything that would burn. All the while, the Wendigo raged in my head. "Stop this!" it hissed. "You need me. Without me, you're nothing. Just a failed priest with blood on his hands." It showed me visions of power, of strength beyond human limits, of living forever, hunting forever. Worst of all, it showed me the men I couldn't save in Vietnam, alive again, standing before me, whole and healthy. "I can give them back to you," it promised. I can pull their souls back from the shadow world. All you have to do is walk out that door, carry me with you." I almost gave in then, the thought of seeing them again, of making right what went so wrong, but I knew it was a lie. The Wendigo feeds on desperation, on despair. It would say anything to get what it wanted. "No," I said aloud, "no more lies." I climbed to the chapel, the highest point in the monastery. The binding symbols were strongest here, glowing brighter as the moon rose higher. I knelt in the center of them, clutching my silver cross. The words of the binding ritual from the journal came to my lips, not in Latin, but in a language far older, words that burned my tongue as I spoke them. The Wendigo screamed inside my head. I felt my body changing, twisting, bones cracking as they tried to reshape themselves, my fingers lengthening into claws, my teeth pushing painfully against my gums, growing longer, sharper. "You're too late," it snarled. "You're already mine. You've tasted human flesh. You've fed me. Fed yourself." "Maybe," I gasped through the pain, but I can still choose how this ends." I struck a match, dropped it onto the gasoline-soaked floor. Flames exploded around me, racing along the trails of fuel. The Wendigo howled in rage and fear. It thrashed inside me, trying to force my body to run, to escape the flames and the binding circle. I held firm, though the pain was unbearable, held the silver cross against my chest until I could smell my own flesh burning. "I bind you," I chanted through gritted teeth. "I bind you to this place, to these stones, to these bones." The monastery was engulfed now, flames shooting through the windows, the roof beginning to collapse. The binding symbols on the floor glowed white-hot, searing themselves into my knees where I knelt. In my last moments, as the smoke filled my lungs and the flames reached for me, the Wendigo showed me one final vision. A truth I hadn't wanted to face. I saw myself months ago freezing to death in the snow outside the monastery. I'd never made it inside. My body, preserved by the cold, lay buried in a snowdrift just yards from the door. What had been living in the monastery all these months wasn't me. It was my ghost, possessed by the Wendigo, feeding it with my guilt and despair. The real Daniel Russo had died in October. Everything since had been the Wendigo using my form, my memories, to break free of its prison. As the roof collapsed, burying me in burning timber, I felt a strange peace. Ghost or not, I'd made my choice. Trapped the Wendigo again, bound it with my sacrifice. The flames took me, and I knew no more. Knew no